Okay, there. You ever start a stream and just forget to plug in your microphone? Couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. Oh, hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well today. It's a very special episode today. It's been an entire year of Peasant's Perspective. What a good year it's been for this series. I love doing this so much. How's everything sounding? Between Design Dorks now doing those Pokemon tier lists, I have a lot of different setups and settings for all of this. So I haven't quite gotten used to, like, swapping all the settings around all the time. Just making sure I've got everything set up properly. The chat box is not showing up properly. One second. Hang on, if I change the scene... Nope, still no chat. Okay, give me 1 second. As a setting, visible. No. There we go, there it is. Okay. Just had to take a second to actually wake up. Okay, music's good. Ideas are set up. I've got my outline ready. Okay, let's get this started. So for anybody new to this is just a nice, fun, chill stream where I'm just going to go through a bunch of ideas that my viewers have submitted, various video game concepts, and kind of just gush about them. It's a very relaxing experience. We're just gonna bask in the creativity of others for a bit. But this stream, we're gonna be doing things a little differently, given the event that this is the 12th and therefore the first full year of these Peasants' Perspective live streams. A huge chunk of these episodes are often taken up by Super Smash Bros., or similar kinds of roster crossover thingamabobs. And I'm not saying that I'm tired of reading those. I don't think I'll ever be tired of reading those. It's so fun to see how people translate characters or concepts into either Smash or other crossover experiences. But I am feeling a bit fatigued of narrating them. Because it is a bit tiring going through the same formula each time of like, okay, here's the character's history, here's the cool gimmick they have, here's the regular stuff they do. And for this landmark, this 1 year episode, I wanted to try to spice things up a bit. So for this one, just this one, I am overriding some of my rules and picking concepts not based on how many submissions the person has had, but based on what I think would provide for the widest breadth of ideas. I do still have 2 Smash concepts, but I chose them for their unique style of presentation. Just thought it would be a nice, fun change of pace. I might even start doing little themed episodes moving into the 2nd year of the series, and when I do that, I'll make sure to announce it much further ahead than the 2 days I normally do, just to give people more time to actually come up with ideas that fit the theme. This does mean that there are a few people whose first submissions will be skipped. I'm sorry about that. But rest assured, you will be rigged in to the next episode with either the concept you submitted this time or something else, whatever you want. I promise you'll get in. But for this one, because of what I'm doing, we only have one new submission. 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 So to start things off, let's change over the music. From Pinokio, Wario Land, the Droid Island. We start with a story premise. 1 week ago, a group of 4 islands were discovered in the middle of the ocean, never seen before, all of them inhabited by robotic and mechanical specimens of all shapes. There was a pyramid in the middle of the islands, and no apparent signs of normal, living beings on the zone. There have been rumors about the... God, this music is... Holy shit! What's this? From a game called Anton Blast. This is sick! There have been rumors about the Pyramid of Light right in the center. What does it contain? More robots? Gold? An atomic weapon? No one knows, but it seems our favorite greedy, smelly garlic enjoyer Wario is on his way to find out if there is gold. And if there isn't, he will turn those robots into a new car. Let me share the document real quick. I cannot share the document. Never mind, it's alright. While on his way, Wario brings his trusty sidekick and pal, Waluigi, who is hyped to help Wario on his new journey this time. Along the way, they got followed by Vinci, a young Italian from Diamond City who heard their plans and hides their face behind a phantom mask to not be identified, as well as to scare foes they find on their way. Wario and Waluigi get on the plane seen in Wario Land 3, now fixed, while Vinci is hiding on the motors of the plane. And so, the journey to the Droid Islands begins. Sorry, I'm kind of just jamming to the music. As you can see, this new entry has more playable characters aside from Wario. Specifically, Wario. He plays similarly to how he did in Wario Land 4, and the other characters do too, with the added bonus of being able to climb walls when running fast, as well as having new transformations like the Cafe Wario, that grants him total uncontrollable speed, or the returning Vampire Wario. Waluigi jumps higher than Wario. He can't climb walls, but instead he can wall jump. He also has transformations like Wario has. Waluigi can only be played in specific levels in certain sections, but those parts in exchange tend to be longer than Wario's sections. And Vinci, art by ya boy Nando, the mysterious boy, girl, whatever they are, that followed Wario on his way to the Droid Island. If you hold A while jumping, they can glide through the air until touching the ground. When they charge forward, the mask they have will shine. The more enemies you defeat with a tackle, the more the mask will shine. And when it shines very fast, it will give you a temporal invincibility and speed up. You can charge through those by just walking until the mask stops shining, which will likely last from 5 to 7 seconds. They can't be affected by the transformations like Wario and Waluigi get. In exchange, their levels aren't designed with much exploration in mind, and more focused on beating off your opponents and solving puzzles. Sometimes you'll see a light bulb in the middle of a level, break it to change in between locations, which will in turn make you play as another character. Therefore, make you progress on the level. If the light bulb is yellow, it will send you to play as Wario. If the light bulb is purple, it will send you to play as Waluigi. Vinci can only be played in zone levels that are accessible in the map. Those levels tend to be levels 3, 6, or 9 of that world. The levels and visuals. As I mentioned in the story section, the player will travel across the 4 Droid Islands, each one containing a different theme and motif, as well as tons of treasures hidden on them being protected by robots and stuff. Each one of the worlds have a total of 9 levels and 2 bosses that can only be accessed by 100%ing all levels of that world. Each boss is for either Wario or Vinci, and beating both of them will grant a key fragment that is meant for opening the Great Pyramid on the center of all the islands, which seems to contain a giant treasure inside protected by the strongest robots of the game. In order to 100% the levels, you must get a high amount of coins on said level, get all treasures and the hidden yellow plate fragment. It's pretty much optional, but if you get all the pieces of the yellow plate in each world, you'll get something very interesting to hear. Of course, to finish a level, you must grab a Keezer that is locked on a cage. This guy will guide you towards the next level, but after you free him, a siren sound and a timer will start, and the Keyser will open a new path. It will lead you to the start of the level, where Waluigi, or Wario if you were playing as Waluigi, or just the plane if you were playing as Vinci, is waiting for you to escape from the level and end it. If the timer ends, the security robots will find you and make you restart all the level without all the progress you made so far. I've never played Pizza Tower before. Is that kind of, okay, you grab the thing and then you have to go back through the level? Did that start with Pizza Tower, or was that a thing they took inspiration from Wario? Just out of curiosity. Either way, it's a fun mechanic. If the timer ends, the security robots will find you and make you restart all the level without the progress you made so far. What is this? What is this horrifying real-life Wario depiction? Ugh. In terms of graphics and visuals, the game looks and tries to recreate the Japanese Wario Land commercials of the 2001-3. Oh, that's an art style. I'll get attention at the very least. With clay-looking characters and environments, as well as plastic and toy-looking robotic enemies, pretty similar in look as Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, and the point-and-click adventure The Neverhood Chronicles. Shake it as you return to the start. Okay. The way the enemy robots break mimics the way a toy would crash when you slam it and play with it too much, while Wario and Friends' movement and transformations are more of a squashing and stretching effect, like if you really played with clay and molded it to make different forms. That is a very fun art style to try to combine with Wario. Like, he's perfect for that kind of claymation, just animation. Like we had the Harrymation Wario concept several episodes ago that kind of perfectly proved that concept. For worlds, we have the temperamental worlds. English just failed me. The levels in this will tend to have a focus on nature, catastrophic environments, tornadoes, and volcanoes. Island 2, wildest highs, craziest lows. Here, the levels are centered on desert theming, high mountain climbing, and golden mines. We have the Citadel of Clocks and Triggers. More of a gimmicky world that plays with your controls and oh, I love control flipping, yes! Like the need of flipping your controller to play with anti-gravity, or shaking it to make Wario mount a robotic bull with more ease. This world is focused on cities, clock towers, abandoned buildings, and the fabrication of the robots. Fourth is the Icy Mirage, an ice world where the game plays with sizes of enemies, blocks, and sometimes the environment, featuring wonderful icebergs, beaches all of a sudden, or even an opera concert in a pirate ship for no reason. And the final island, the Droid camera. You finally got to open and enter the pyramid after beating bosses and all. The madness awaits at the center of all. Each level is like climbing through the floors of a giant tower, each more crazy than the last, ranging to a floor filled with weird enemies that look like they were made with Nintendo Labo, crossing a red-scented cave that reminds you of Virtual Boy's Wario Land, or even a boss rush with nerfed bosses from each island. Final level can be played with either Wario or Vinci, and the final floor contains a weird giant monitor. Their name is Jupiter, and it's hiding the giant treasure from you, the player. They offer you to join the army, but since Wario Vinci is more interested in having that treasure, Jupiter will start the fight. They are pretty much like a CPU to the robots. If he gets broken, all the robots will stop working. At first, Jupiter will only summon enemies that you must throw at them. If you throw many of these, they will get very mad and will start a second phase, where the monitor will start... Is this some sort of like flowy monitor kind of deal? Start showing many disturbing faces in green. It absolutely is. Either faces from past Wario Land bosses, distorted sprites from Wario himself or Vinci, or even the disturbing faces from the Game Boy camera. Oh yeah, it's just totally... that's great. After damaging him enough, the pyramid will collapse. Jupiter's monitor will show a timer, and you'll need to escape from the pyramid all the way down in under 6 minutes. Depending on the character you played as to defeat Jupiter and escape, the ending will be different. They don't change much, but anyways. Wario is that he managed to bring himself the treasure that Jupiter was hiding, back with a lot of gold in there. Wario and Waluigi celebrate until Vinci appears and tries to grab the bag out of Wario's hands. They fight over it, and Vinci's mask falls off, revealing her face. Then Vinci pretty much puts the mask back on and gives the bag back to Wario, kinda angry about it. Have a Meta Knight kind of deal, where this character's mask falling off and they just stop fighting. Wario, Waluigi, and now a more relaxed Vinci get on the plane while they see the sun fading away. And then Vinci's ending is just the role reversed, with who gets the bag. Okay. Bonus content. If you get all of the yellow plate fragments in each world, you unlock a CD that is pretty much an option for an alternate soundtrack option. Ooh! With new songs to hear that resemble Wario Land's soundtrack. There are shops in the game that give you a reason to get coins in the levels, aside from 100%ing them. You can buy color clothes for Wario, Waluigi, and Vinci there, as well as power-ups to make some levels you enter easier, like a temporal speed boost or jumping higher for only one level. You can check all the treasures you get in a museum that is in each island, showing you the treasures you got in each level per world. There is an optional extra in each level. Mad Scientism from Wario Land 4 can be found in some of these levels, and you must rescue him in each level from all the situations he gets involved in. If you rescue him in all the levels in the game, you unlock his glasses as a wearable extra. It doesn't add much, it's just a fun visual for Wario and Vinci for completing the game at 101%. Oh, is that it? That's it! Wow, that was a short one. A very fun idea, though. Like, it's hard not to have a fun idea with the wackiness of the potential of a Wario Land. Just anything. I miss this kind of just vibe of these games. There's a reason that Pizza Tower is doing so well right now. It's because people have been clamoring for stuff like this. And it'd be nice to actually have Wario go back to that. Kind of like how Metroid Dread finally reclaimed Samus's place in Metroidvanias. Let Wario star in his own game concept for once. I respect the hell out of adding a new OC and not making them just completely outshine the remaining cast, just kind of trying to more integrate them. That's a mistake that a lot of people make with their OCs, just being like, look how cool these new characters are. They completely overshadow the old characters. Rey Skywalker. This feels nice. Really, the only thing I'm left with is just, I want to hear more about the idea here. Like, I'm almost getting a kind of just... Okay, you got this kind of street urchin following around with Wario. I'd love almost like a... Oh, what, how do I put this to words? Wario is kind of like the super rude, middle-aged uncle of a family that just doesn't give a shit about anything. I think it'd be kind of fun to add to that dynamic, just some kind of... like a teenage rebel daughter that just doesn't listen to him, but also, they also care about each other. It'd be fun to see that kind of dynamic with Wario. Give him somebody that he actually cares about apart from himself. That'd be really fun. But yeah, I enjoyed reading this immensely. I love the idea of actively trying to make a game based on those really just off-putting old commercials when they couldn't quite figure out how to live-action video game stuff. That would be fantastic. I'd love that so much. And what a great way to, like, reinvigorate Wario's style by giving him such a unique visual flair. Duke swearing feels oddly cursed even though it's happened before. Bro, I work in a steel yard. What you hear in videos and on stream is like a tenth of how bad I have a pouting mouth. I have a sailor's mouth. Alright. Okay, let's... I actually, like, hesitated for moving on for a second there just because I wanted to listen to more of the soundtrack. Well, let's move on. Well done, Pinokio. It was a lot of fun. Respect for making your first concept about Wario Land. For our second concept, we have a second submission from somebody that's previously brought an idea for a Mario Galaxy 3 by Dingerfish. What if there was a game for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish? Hello, Dingerfish again. Today, I'd like to throw my idea into the ring for Peasant's perspective. This idea, like my original Super Mario Galaxy 3 idea from all the way back in the first Peasant's perspective, last August, will be a short proposal of an idea I've had cooking up for a while now. However, instead of a Mario game, this concept is focused around a theoretical licensed 3D platformer based on Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Yo, it's weird that we kind of just stopped getting those. Like, from 2000 to, like, 2012-ish, they were just all the rage. You get one for every single movie that came out. And then they just kind of stopped. I don't know, but... Like, I know that most of them were bad, but, like, there is some charm to the terribleness, right? I had some fun with a few of them. Like, did anybody play the Flushed Away one on the GameCube? Or was that side mode where you basically had you were just in separate castles and would just take turns firing ballistas and cannons at each other? That was so much fun. Spoilers for Puss in Boots 2 ahead, please watch it if you haven't. So, spoiler warning here. If anybody doesn't want to hear that, just mute the stream, and once the overlay changes means that we've moved on. Alright. First off, some backstory for where the inspiration for this concept came from. At around the end of December last year, I watched Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and instantly fell in love. It was the best animated movie I had watched since Spider-Verse came out in 2018, and I could not stop thinking about the stellar animation, tight writing, and amazing characters, especially the villains. That's true. The general cost of making a video game did rise a lot in recent years. But I was thinking about the movie one day in the shower, and it struck me. What if a game was made based on the movie akin to all the licensed games that came out in the 2000s? What started as a simple thought in my head quickly spiraled into a whole web of ideas. And today, I'd like to talk about those ideas to all of you reading and detail my concept for a game based on Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Let me get some water real quick. Okay, so if you've watched the movie, here's a quick recap. Puss in Boots realizes that his insatiable desire for adventure and his daredevil approach to life has led him to exhausting 8 of his 9 lives. Determined to restore the Puss in Boots name back to its former glory, Puss embarks on a grand adventure to locate the legendary Last Wish and reclaim his full quota of 9 lives. Along the way, Puss finds himself partnering up with Kitty Softpaws and Perrito, where they traverse through many interesting places and lock horns with a variety of foes. Is Perrito's name a combination of Perro and Bonito? Is that the purpose? I just realized that. Which combined, I believe, has a lot of potential as a video game. So, what would it play like, you may be asking? My vision for the game is as a 3D platformer, with controls similar to Stray. I mean, it's just... that's good. This pretty much boils down to basic platform controls such as running, moving the camera, jumping and crouching, and the such. And like Stray, I imagine jumps homing onto the platform the player is looking at. Burrito's small. Oh, it's just small. Okay, I haven't learned that much Spanish then. I'm getting there. Ito is a diminutive? Oh, okay. I do think since Puss is a very combat-oriented character in all of the movies he's been in, he should have some slightly more advanced movements, techniques focused around combat. Presumably, a block, parry, dodge, and roll that simply allows him to be more effective in combat and opens up potential for more unique boss fights. You had Ito to make it smaller, and Ote to make it bigger. Okay. So with bonito meaning pretty, is bonote also a word? And what would that mean then? Sorry for the Spanish tangent. I'm on like day 130 with Duolingo and I'm trying to learn more. For the structures of the levels themselves, as opposed to stray simple Wait, no, did I skip something? No, I didn't. Paths to the end, with the occasional puzzle in between, I imagine this game would have more skill-based platforming challenges, where the player only succeeds if they have proper timing and game sense, achieved by the use of moving platformers and set pieces, letting the player see parts of the level they have to get ready for ahead of time. That's not where the gameplay ends, though. I imagine levels have a multitude of enemies, oftentimes in large clusters designed to challenge the players. For this reason, I think Puss should have a combat aspect to his controls. Nothing too complicated, this would be a kid's game after all. Bonote isn't real, it only works on nouns. Oh, okay. Oh shoot, right, the link. God damn it. Oh, it's another sorry, some people haven't shared these in a way that I can... Well, I guess I can try to copy it. I don't know if this link will work, but here you go. Alright, sorry, where was I? At a time. That's not where the gameplay ends, though. I imagine levels having a multitude of enemies, oftentimes in large clusters designed to challenge the player. For this reason, I think Puss should have a combat aspect to his controls. Oh wait, no, I literally just read that. God damn it. So let's have an example of a level, shall we? One of my favorite set pieces in the movie has been to be the Dark Forest, which was the supernatural area surrounding the wishing star that changed depending on who held the magic map. My idea for the level does stray from the canon plot of the movie, but I think it could lead to an incredibly engaging level. The way the level would work would involve passing the magic map to Puss, Kitty, or Perrito, and having the level change depending on who holds it. However, the core layout of the level, the terrain, platforms, enemy placement, etc., this allows the player to pick and choose what obstacles they go through, and what enemies they encounter, differing each time they go through. This has a lot of potential, such as letting the player weigh out their options while in a safe area to choose which obstacles and enemies they're most confident in overcoming, and it adds a lot of replay value in the way various players can have different experiences in the Dark Forest across multiple playthroughs. A detail I imagine the level having is some sort of dynamic music. Music that changes depending on the circumstance in the game, that differs between each version of the Dark Forest. This could help with immersing the player in the level and adding a sort of uniqueness to each and every path they encounter. Now, onto bosses. The way I imagine boss battles would play out in the game are as cycles, where the boss goes through multiple attacks the player must dodge before doing the final attack of the cycle, which when adequately dealt with will leave the boss vulnerable to attack. Think Rayman Legends. As an example, let's go through my idea for a boss battle against Big Jack Horner. Just 10 out of 10 character. Taking place in his pie-making factory, Jack Horner's fight serves as an introduction to the game's boss battles, as well as serving as a test of the player's progress as of this point. So, let's get to it, shall we? His first attack involves him kicking back and watching while he sends out the Serpent Sisters as sorts of mini-bosses who Puss has to, has to defeat to move on to his next attack. This attack actually differs when Jack Horner is under 25% hit points, as the next time he does it, he'll use Midas's touch on one of the sisters and throw them at Puss as a golden projectile that permanently slides around the arena. That's fun. If he turns both Serpent Sisters into gold, he'll simply skip the attack and the next... I can picture this boss fight in my head. Just in that style of, like 2000s 3D licensed movie platformers, like, this is so easy to visualize. His second attack involves him repeatedly pulling out pies from a conveyor belt and throwing them at Puss, which both damage and disorient Puss's movement, with the latter happening even if Puss is blocking, and travel fast enough where he has to sidestep to dodge them. His third attack involves him spinning around his magic nanny bag with various items and some magical enemies flying out as hazards that Puss has to dodge using his sidestep and roll. His fourth attack involves him taking the Phoenix out of his bag and using it as a flamethrower while slowly chasing around Puss, until the Phoenix runs out of fire breath, having Jack Horner getting annoyed, making it try to start spewing out flames again, leaving him vulnerable to attack. What voice line does he I mean, any of them? All of them? In quick succession, please? As a first boss, Jack Horner not only introduces the format of bosses in the game from then on, but also gives the player an idea of what to expect for future bosses. Now, I wanted to keep this concept short, so I won't cover the other bosses in too much detail, plus I want to leave their potential battle for your interpretation. But just to go over them, Goldilocks and the Three Bears would be a 4-attack cycle involving each of the three bears, and finally Goldilocks, each attacking Puss. Death's fight would presumably involve him attempting to ambush the player and making the player have to figure out what's real and what isn't as a result of Puss's paranoia. Well, oh, wow, lots of short ones today. Well, I hope you enjoyed this concept. I kept this one short and sweet, just like my Mario Galaxy 3 concept from 11 months ago. Holy shit. And I made sure to leave some things up for interpretation to get you guys thinking about the potential of this game. It really is a shame we don't get quality licensed games akin to Battle for Bikini Bottom anymore. And so many high-quality movies such as Puss in Boots 2, and even other movies I haven't covered such as Spider-Verse, have similar potential. So hopefully I inspired one of you to get thinking about a possible licensed game for one of your favorite movies, and I'm anticipating talking to you all next time with my concept for a fundamental rework of 3D Sonic. Until then, thank you all for reading, and stay safe. Alright, yeah, that was just 5 pages. What is this madness? Oh yeah, Camp, a Spider-Verse follow-up to Shattered Dimensions would be so good. God, that would be so perfect. I can't really add to this that much. Because, like, it's a licensed game. Everybody knows how licensed games work. They just follow the plot of the movie very loosely while you just basically play out the plot of the movie. And Puss in Boots: The Last Wish would be such a good game to do that. Like, imagine being able to play through that sequence where he's attacking the giant golem thing with the bell. That'd be so cool. Also, Puss just seems like a fun character to control. Just like in general. Forget Assassin's Creed games, I want to play Puss in Boots games. But yeah, wow. We are cruising today. And given the how this person types, I think this one's probably, yeah, this one's also very short too. All right. Don't jinx myself, I'll risk clicking on a 500-page today. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right. Next up, from Jared Hebert, who previously submitted the Thomas the Tank Engine I Love Sodor pitch, we have Silver Spoon Cold Shoulders, revamping the type chart for Pokemon. Like a number of the regulars for the streams here and other avenues where Nintendo fans congregate on the internet, I've been stuck in a bit of a pickle when it comes to Pokemon as a franchise in the last decade. Let me grab the link for people real quick. On one hand, I still quite enjoy many aspects of Pokemon across the board. Hey, Camp, your name's green. Did you become a member? Thank you, man. I appreciate that. The character and creature designs are a small part of what inspired me to seek out the arts for my education and hopefully a job career. Junichi Masuda can still crank out a great OST all these years later, in spite of his weaker managerial directorial efforts in recent years. The Pokemon anime's early days with 4Kids was part of my early exposure to anime and the possibilities of animation as a medium. Certainly things I probably hadn't considered up to that point and made the American anime boom a fair bit more approachable with Toonami 3.0 and such. The older spin-offs helped me not be just a Mario fan and expand my horizons, not to the same level Smash Bros. Did, since my first mainline Pokemon was X and Y, but gotta give it credit where it's due. The infamous dub shift during the Battle Frontier was an early gateway to learning about the inner workings for TV and movies, and the first batch of shorts for Poketoons was hands down the best anime content for Pokemon since before the Kalos League. And I hope we get more shorts in the future because Pokemon can do so much more if given to a solid creative team. But on the other hand, the series has been forced into being an embodiment of the myriad of issues currently plaguing the video game industry. Rushing mainline entries out because the Pokemon Company will not have a deadline be missed. God forbid they consider that one Miyamoto attribution. A severe lack of manpower support or breathing room on. The higher-ups appear to have too much rent-free in the minds of their developers and employees, making for a work culture far too common among Japan's industry in general. The TPCI leaders give off the impression they feel the games, the very reason Pokemon exists, are more of an obligation rather than a positive light. There's no attention given to the classic spin-offs people want to see return, pumping the mobile spin-offs with Skinner boxes and microtransactions targeting kids and their parents' credit cards, and all under the impression that Nintendo seems to be looking the other way for the Pokemon Company simply for operating the highest-grossing IP not owned by Walt Disney Company, which will surely have to wait another day for elsewhere. Granted, Nintendo hasn't been beyond criticism in the same time frame, but the Pokemon Company is the main focus for this here tangent, and it feels like the Pokemon Company brass view the game as dead weight in spite of it being such a nuanced yet approachable monster-catching RPG in spite all this behind-the-scenes nonsense. A Pokemon game is eventually good. The current Pokemon is bad forever. That's definitely a Miyamoto quote. Definitely. 100% believe you. But one can only get through such a list of to-dos by going one at a time. Too long, didn't read. I'm starting with a type chart here as it's due for a shakeup. So let's get into it. Fairy needs to be taken down a peg or two. And the ideas for doing so is to reduce Dragon immunity to just a resistance, Bug now dealing neutral damage to them, and Fighting now dealing neutral damage as well. Yeah, okay. I've never quite understood the logic for the Dragon immunity in the first place. Like, I love the idea of Fae/fairies being able to defeat dragons, but like, a dragon should still be able to beat up a fairy. Bug deserves a little help, now deals neutral damage to fairy, as bugs can wreak havoc on fairy villages. Ah yes, that village of Rabombies has to always live in fear of the beedrills that swarm above. Ooh. Dragon now deals a half damage to Fairy instead of nothing. This is what Fairy took into OP territory, but the resist will still be a strong asset. Fighting now deals neutral damage to Fairy, as hero to hearken to heroes being witches, warlocks, etc. And last, but certainly not least, Ice, the one to be redeemed. Snow gives it a status HP focus, healing 1/16 of max HP per turn, plus 1 priority. Hail, bring it back. And finally, new resistances for the first time in the ice types That's a lot! We got water, both H2O and affect each other based on environment. Works both scientifically and thematically. Yeah, true. Resists normal. Mammals and birds either migrate or hibernate for the winter in temperate climates. Also, have you ever punched a block of solid ice before? Dark. Ice and snow can reflect light. Also, pure white thanks to its prismatic crystalline structure. Dragon, because lizards are cold-blooded. Also, I've always loved the scientific attempts at explaining Pokemon. Like, it often doesn't work, but trying to make the world building of Pokemon work has always been one of my favorite things about the series. Resists flying, see above, also pre-existing type interaction for flying. It resists electricity. Pure water is a great insulator. Also Bolt Beam and Thunder Snow IRL. Fairies and other Fae are typically small or struggle in the cold. Also Fairy is still top tier borderline OP, so the nerf still feels warranted. And Psychic. Muscles easing or seizing depending on application of Ice Cold. Also Brain Freeze is a thing. That's great. I'm just picturing this red, like, has anybody seen that Jello Apocalypses, so this is basically Pokemon? I'm just picturing these as those animated, just, Pokemon explanations. Can't punch a bird. Your computer's not working? Punch it. Scared of the dark? Punch it. It's a good video. Honorable mentions, but still didn't feel right after some soul searching. Bug, I was under the impression some insects could migrate or hibernate if able, but Bug still has enough troubles already. Ghosts are more visible in colder spots by... Yes, ghosts are, indeed, more visible in colder spots by water or vapor interactions. In the end, the change to Dark felt more like enough to help even out its effectiveness alongside Ghost for the time being. Grass, because plants hibernating and reproducing for winter, but grass is hard enough to... and still has a lot of good move statuses for sustain. Ground, dirt, earth, freezes in the cold, plus pre-existing interaction, plus fire, not a resist, but maybe revert to Gen 1 interaction. What is the Gen 1 interaction that's being described here? Not sure about fire having the most resist after still feels a bit odd to me. Feels like a brief return. See a normal guy, punch it. Having trouble playing Tatches, punch it. It is indeed the solution to all problems. I do like the idea of making Ice significantly more focused on just being a giant, well, literally an icy tank. Fits right up there with Rock and Steel. You know, it'd be nice to have that variety. Ice just doesn't have anything. And here's what the before and after of the type chart would look like if this list of changes were to be implemented by Game Freak in the games of Generation 10. Wow, we're gonna be on the 10th generation. That's a lot. Which I'd be over the moon to see any of these ideas make a positive impact on the franchise, though a special thanks would be appreciated if anyone from Game Freak does see this. Oh gosh, this does not fit within... Hang on. Screen capture. Can I resize this? Nah, almost. We almost got it. Almost got it. Almost. Stay on target. There we go. That's barely legible from the size it has to be. Okay, though. Yeah. Like, it's very short, very sweet, but I like the ideas presented here. Oh gosh, and now I've completely screwed over the setup on my screen. One second. Technical difficulties. I gotta get everything back in position. like, I feel like there's a lot of things that have to be worked on in Pokemon. Ironically, for a series based off of it, the series just kind of doesn't evolve. And when it tries, it doesn't do it well. But I do think this would be a good step in a series of many, many much-needed ones. But this does, like, re-spark some interest in things. Like, I do just love the idea of really just trying to ask these scientific explanations of, like, well, Pokemon science kind of deals with being like, oh yes, like, of course bugs deal neutral damage to fairies, because bugs can wreak havoc on fairy villages, like, everybody knows that. The Ariados population is heavily hurting the Jigglypuff species in the area. I don't know. I would be curious, Jared, to hear more thoughts on, like, other areas that could be changed. Like, I can definitely sympathize with wanting to rant about all the things that Pokemon's doing, but that's gotta come with, like, oh gosh, just like a shiver down my spine. Maybe there is actually a ghost. I need to find some water vapor so I can see them. Like, I'm definitely frustrated by Pokemon, but you also gotta... I think feedback towards this series over all others has to consider what could actually... Like, you gotta consider the situation that Pokemon's in, you know? Changes have to be easy, otherwise the Pokemon company's just not gonna do them. I don't know. It's kind of sad in a way. I don't see this series really changing. Because, why need to? It has all the money. Wario's already got his Scrooge McDuck bank. What more could you ask for? I don't know. Still, I enjoy the ideas a lot. Okay. Next up, let's do this one. From... Oh gosh, the music's gonna be so weird for this. From Capsid. For Splatoon 3, talking about the big runs. Big runs are one of the major events of Splatoon 3, and they sound cool on paper. The Salmonids have taken over one of the PvP maps, and it's up to the players to drive them off. But in practice, they're a little... lacking. Flavor-wise, the characters are awfully laid back for what's literally a biblical apocalypse. Gameplay-wise, playing the same map over and over with a vastly cut number of possible night waves gets boring. And rewards-wise, all you get is an extended reward track for the rotation and a locker statue. With it looking better as you get a higher score. As of Sizzle Season 2023, you at least get double scales after an extra wave, but that doesn't affect the fact that you're permanently locked out of 3/4 of the potential rewards. So how can we make big runs on par with Splatfests in terms of player excitement? Wave 1. Flavor. First and foremost, one of the big complaints I've seen about the big run is that the game doesn't take it seriously enough for what it is. Again, a biblical apocalypse. I'm not joking. When smoke rises from the 7 rings, the pink fish will emerge from the sea, devouring all the creatures of the land. The Book of Madai, Chapter 10, Verse 10. And yet, what does Deep Cut do when a big run comes around? They go, oh dear, what are we ever going to do without invaded stage? Let's beat them up, and then go on with the news as usual. Even during the big run itself, they seem oddly blithe about the whole ordeal. I understand why this is. Nintendo doesn't want to traumatize the kids. But they did put in the Horoboro stream, so that doesn't quite hold water. Likewise, Inkfish, an umbrella term for player characters because the devs didn't have the foresight to call them squidlings, they can just say inklings whenever referred to both playable species, and the plaza largely seem to not care about it. Which also makes sense because they're basically all dumb teenage jocks. But still, for a natural disaster at best and the apocalypse at worst, they really should care more about it. I'm not saying the announcement should be at a full-on analog horror video like the ones that were dime a dozen before the actual first big run actually happened. I just like a little more oomph. So here's how I'd fix the announcement. At the start of the Anarchy Splatcast, Deep Cut introduced themselves as usual. You lip sync, they drip ink, etc. Then something like this happens. I have no idea what the Splatoon 3 characters' voices sound like, so I'm not even gonna try. Let's see the current The TV in the studio flashes colors bars with a tone plays. Then the standard info splash screen appears. Perhaps it also flickers between maps displaying the salmonids approaching the stage and eyewitness photos of the 7 rings forming. Warning! A school of salmonids has been observed approaching map, and are expected to make landfall. Date. This is not a test. Oh, this is what's his bucket? God, what's the manta ray's name? Big something. Big Man. Yeah, thank you, Matt Ayadash. This can't be happening. All residents of map and the surrounding areas are advised to evacuate. Flavor text related to the map being invaded, for example. The voice can advise Inkblot Art Academy students on how to secure projects they can't take with them, or name alternate ways to buying essentials now that Macro Mart's flooded and swarmed. If you encounter a salmonid, splat it on site. Again, this is not a test. A big run event is imminent for map. One last series of tones plays, then bait and click mutation plays for the rest of the Splatcast. What are we gonna do? Relax, we're deep cut, a few fish aren't gonna stand in our way, and I'll provide moral support. I know that, but no matter how much bass we kick, that's good. There's still millions strong. We're toast. Hold on, something's coming in from Grisco. What is it? Grisco Industries is happy to announce that our employees will be assigned to keep the invasion under control. We will also finance repairs for map, so long as it doesn't cut into our profits. Rewards will also be given to all volunteers, especially top performers. Grisco Industries, creating a brighter future for us all. So we'll have backup. I'm liking those odds. To all of you watching at home, don't let us down. And if push comes to shove, we'll be right there helping you. Until then, let's just focus on the Splatcast. Yeah, that's much better. It's not like the office is on fire and everybody's running around screaming, but like it's taking it seriously. Much better tone there. During Splatcasts between the announcement and the weekend itself, Deep Cut will always comment on the soon-to-be overrun stage when it's in rotation for PvP and remind everybody that Big Run is coming at 2... God, this music is throwing me off so much. It's hard to get a narrative cadence with such chaotic... yeah, it's gotta love Salmon Run music. Remind everybody that Big Run is coming and to evacuate even when it's not available for Turf War specifically. Likewise, they specifically mention training to help defend the city during the normal Salmon Run segment. However, this doesn't stop at the Splatcasts. In the hub cities and lobbies, more and more Grisco posters will be set up throughout the week, and the EAS broadcast will occasionally play on the big TVs. Likewise, the hubs and PvP stages will gradually empty out, with the remaining Inkfish and Jellyfish looking noticeably worried. Until the start of the big run, where everyone is lined up outside Grisco, with a queue going all the way down the stairs past where the player starts when you boot up the game. Finally, the day before the Salmonids make their landfall, the sky will be overcast and stormy looking, with this carrying over to the battle stages. They also get the red sky during Big Run itself as a subtle nod that this isn't the main game mode right now. This would be so much... Like, just the thematics of this. I love it when in these kind of pseudo live service games that the actual game setting changes based on what's happening. Like, if anybody's played Monster Hunter Tri, anytime the Gen Moran shows up and there's just a sandstorm everywhere, like, you feel how serious everything is. Like, oh yeah, everybody's gearing up to take on the big sand whale, and it's such a cool feeling. The shopkeepers will also get on the action. Well, when exiting the shops, as a whole, not each individual one, they'll say something along the lines of, stay safe. They also say Happy Splatfest when it's relevant. During the big run itself, the shopkeepers are visibly scared, and the first time you enter each shop, there's a special dialogue event. Because I'm a nerd, I'd write what each shopkeeper would say or do, including the ones in Ecopolis Plaza when it's inevitably added to the expansion pass. Alright, let me get some water. That's it. Exactly, Carson, it needs more oomph. For Splatsville, Sheldon can't do ink battles directly, but he can provide tips for how each weapon in Salmon Run when you look... How to use each weapon in Salmon Run when you look at it. What is this music? When you look at it. And believe me, he will. Shelly and Donnie are scared out of their minds and have likely made a fort out of weapons and other things lying around. Yeah, having the shopkeepers like actively react to what's going on. You just see them in this pillow fort, but it's a pillow fort made of guns. Mosi Schellendorf will regale the players. What? Such an interesting outro for that song. Oh, Link? Yeah, sorry. Where was I? Amosi Schellendorf will regale the player with stories from the Great Turf War, even more than usual, with the hopes that you'll learn something from them that you can use to fight off the Salmonids. For the hats, Gnarly Eddie is helping board up the shop in the foreground, while Nails is sitting on a stool in his usual spot. Yeah, like this kind of preparing for a disaster kind of vibe. And it talks about how it was a bad time to move back to brick and mortar. While Mo's like, get their basses! God, that elementary school kind of just dialogue of like, we're trying to swear, but we don't feel like we can, so we're just gonna throw any word that makes it seem like we're cool, yeah! Flo talks about making peace with the Salmonids and manifesting an end to big runs. Her little guy is a little less high-minded and asks to get to the map and fight. Gel Lafleur helpfully recaps the sunken scroll from earlier for players who missed Splatoon 2. Jalonzo doesn't really know, but I wanted to work in a please understand, maybe when begging the player to stay home. That was a touching tribute to Awada after his death, and while I understand why his Splatfest dialogue was changed, I still want it to be in the game in some way. Gilfonso delivers an entire soliloquy right out of Hamlet about the coming dangers, and again warns the players to stay safe. Mr. Coco hides in his shell and screams, "Please don't eat me!" before realizing it's just the player. He's still on edge throughout the big run, though. Fred Crumbs is the least worried about the Salmonids out of all the shopkeepers. Not named Harmony. After all, being beaten to death with frying pans can't be as painful as deep frying himself. Fair. Man, those Salmonids are a total bummer. Fade those fish for me, will ya? And in Hotlantis, oh, hey, Barry told me to stay home, and I really want some cash for a new synthesizer, so, here we are. Anyways, do you want to just buy some processed cheese or something? Just crap, whatever, piss. I feel like this is landing a lot more for me if I understood more of Splatoon's, like, NPCs, but this is still so charming. Speaking of the event start, during the first 24 hours of the big run, the Splatcast happens more or less as it does now, with a few name changes. Deep Cuts talk about the stage and how it's been affected takes place after a reminder to help stop the invasion. Sheldon Video calls in from Ammonites to give you tips for a random weapon. Dynamo can roll over cohooks. Explosure can kill flyfish, don't bother with fish sticks if you have a Splatoon-matic, etc. The PvP segment is preceded by, you should stay home or fighting, but if you must play Turf or Anarchy, here's where it's safe. And for the love of COD, don't have Big Men ask if he can keep the Salmonids as pets. Even putting aside that the Salmonids are intelligent beings with their own culture and language, it's better suited for a piece of regular Salmon Run chatter anyways. But after the 24-hour mark, things heat up. Deep Cut are now in their Grizzco uniforms and are reporting live from the map in question. More accurately, Shiver's reporting and sniping with her stringer, while Fry's making sushi with her splatana in the background, and helping out the employees fighting for their lives, turning around whenever she needs to say something. Big Man is streaming the whole thing from a tablet, and when he would normally display something on his TV, his fin fumbles in front of the camera for a moment before the image fills the screen. But why are they risking their lives out there? Before I can tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. I love the idea that these two are trying to fight for their lives while Big Man is just streaming the whole thing. Wave 2, gameplay. First off, it's an all-out invasion of the city where Inkfish live. As fun as it is to have a random weapon rotation, it doesn't make sense to roll the slot machine instead of letting people pick their weapons. My solution is to let players declare a preference for a class or specific weapon before joining a lobby. For example, I main the Hydra Splatling. I know its ins and outs, and would rather little Timmy, who exclusively mains frontline weapons, not get it. This way, if the RNG decides a wave's loadout includes a Hydra, I automatically swap loaned weapons with whoever gets on. Flavor-wise, Mr. Grizz is haphazardly loading out whatever weapons he can get his paws on to account for the demand, but he at least has your preferences jotted down. You're 4 more times more likely to roll your main, but you still need to be versatile to reliably get high scores, the best of both worlds. Ties are broken at random, and you can't request a Grizzco weapon because technically their existence is between you and Mr. Grizz. Speaking of Grizzco weapons, they'd all be possible to get during a big run, but each one would have a 3.33% nice chance to both fit with Splatoon 3's fascination with that number, and to maintain the normal 20% chance of getting one during a wild card rotation. But that's assuming my other idea isn't implemented. Grizzco weapons for every class. To be clear, these would be available during normal random rotations too, and are not locked to big runs. The Grizzco shooter is just a fully upgraded hero shot loaded from Octo Canyon, with the stats to match. No unhinged gimmicks, but it's still OP, just the class in general. It even has ink efficiency on par with the Grizzco umbrella, but you know going in that a Grizz weapon isn't going to sip ink into the real deal. The roller has the horizontal flick of a Splatoon 1 pre-patch Dynamo, the one that got nerfed into the ground in all the sequels, and the vertical flick of a Flingza? Flingza, goodness, but even bigger, with a trade-off that you can only get off about 5 flicks on a full tank of ink. And to be clear, when I talk about its horizontal flick, I mean every drop of ink does the same amount of damage regardless if it's in the center or not. The other downside, rolling itself moves you at a snail's pace. You could maybe travel from port to starboard on Marooner's Bay in 5 God, it is so hard to narrate with this music in the background. It's constantly changing tempos, is the thing. So I'll kind of get into a vibe of just trying to narrate at a similar speed, and it just keeps throwing me off constantly. Just go faster, go slower, go faster, go slower. And it's just, my brain is getting bamboozled. Brush doesn't differentiate between the swing and the roll. Simply hold down ZR to move it at an ink brush speed while automatically flicking at ink brush's speed and Octorut brush range and damage. But of course, this guzzles your ink tank in seconds, meaning you have to move between puddles of ink to refill quickly before the salmon sniff you out and proceed to annihilate you. Sort of an assassin playstyle. The dualies have 0 range. If Noctoling with a pompadour haircut fired them, the front of their hair would stick out farther than the shots would land. However, each shot does 100 damage, meaning you can shred salmonids at point-blank range. Firing, though, isn't the point of the weapon. You have 4 dodge rolls, and each one creates a bomb explosion at your feet where you stop, making you even more of a melee weapon than the Grizzco Splatana, trading off instant obliteration for anything that's not a Mothership, Gusher Goldie, or King Salmon with incredible AoE. Last but not least, the Splatling. This bad boy takes 5 seconds in your entire tank to fully charge and has 5 firing modes. Ring 1 on the reticle is the mini, Ring 2 is the Nautilus, Ring 3 is the heavy, 4 the Hydra, and the full charge is literally just a Stingray from Splatoon 2. Wall penetration and all. Yes, I know a normal Splatling has 2 rings. Each ring costs 20% of your tank, and you slow down as the charge approaches max. Now that I've added more variety to the weapon pool, I like to do the same for the night waves, known occurrences if you're a Fed. The pool of potential waves is 8 for a normal sound run, 4 for the Wahoo World and Inkblot big runs, and 3 for Undertow Spillway. This makes for a boring experience when you know there are a grand total of 3 options for what you'll be doing next if the sun sets between the waves. I understand the rationale. The lucrative waves are cut between because then that way the high scores are all RNG. Others depend on Gusher Cannon locations that can't be used if they're salmonid spawn points. And Glowfly Rush, one of the few night waves for Undertow, is highly thematic for an invasion under the smoke of the 7 rings. But all the same, having it be basically a coin toss if you're facing a crew wipe waiting to happen every time the sun sets is both terrifying and snoozeworthy. Let's boost the pool to a full 8 waves. First off, for future big runs, widen ramps is needed so that grillers can always work and allow mudmouth eruptions. But nerf the spawn rate of golden mudmouths so it's not a free wave. I wish I understood more about what this was talking about. Like, I can tell there's a lot of passion put into this, but I don't know what a griller is. I don't know what a mudmouth eruption is. It's creating very funny mental images in my head, but I doubt those mental images are accurate. Targeted strike. Only one type of boss spawns with a number of it that it can spawn at one time. Oh, that's what got to the end of the allotted playlist. Let's go back. There we go. Mr. Grizz has unique interactions for each version of the waves. For example, if it's all steel eels, he can say, I hope you like corn mazes. A steel at surplus can cause him to equip snipers. Consider this your holiday bonus. And Slammin' Libs to him are a glimpse into a world where Team Aliens won the Cryptid Splatfest. Big shots and flyfish are excluded, the first because having 15 bosses crowded around one cannon would break the game, and the second for sanity's sake. Rescue. Some unfortunate inkfish was left behind during an evacuation, and it's your job to rescue them. The egg basket is at its high tide location, while the survivor is hiding where the other team's spawn would be if this was PvP. For obvious reasons, this doesn't appear with tide levels that block passageway between these 2 points. After finding your way to them, you escort the survivor back to the back. That's a fun little concept for a Splatoon mode. A sort of kind of escort quest mission? I like that. They don't have a weapon but have access to swim, form, and decent AI. They evade lesser salmonids and boss sacks to the best of their ability and stick close to the players that use a this-way ping. If you successfully get to them to the basket, they'll super jump to the helicopter and Mr. Grizz will completely waive your quota, with the opportunity to get even more eggs if there's time left. Meanwhile, letting the salmonids splat them means they'll smell blood in the water, or I guess ink is in the ink, increasing their speed by 25% for the rest of the match. That's fun. Like, it's not a game over, but it just really screws you over. Flavor-wise, there's some implication that there's still a way to save them so that little Timmy doesn't have to grapple with the idea of letting someone die permanently. Yeah, I guess. Just be like, okay, yeah, they'll reconstitute once we get the salmonids away and can make the whole spawn point for Splatoon. I don't know how Splatoon respawns work, but once they get that thing working again. As for the survivor's appearance, it's randomized each wave with a 33% chance it's a certain outfit specific to the stage. For example, Inkblot Arc Academy has a professional-looking one, Wahoo World is someone in a mascot suit, the resort has a hapless vacationer, etc., etc. All Out Assault, the salmons are making one last push to take over the map. The hazard level is bumped up 30% from normal, but the quota isn't. On top of this, the player have to stem the tide of the invasion or else they'll be forced to retreat. The salmonid presence is measured by a meter at the top screen, resembling the PvP results one that would fill up as more salmonids spawn and decrease as they're splatted. As a final wrinkle, a player who makes it to a gusher can plug it for 15 seconds, keeping the horde under control, but also costing the team potential golden eggs. So more just an all-out horde mode, just defeat as much as you possibly can. Okay. I think I'm following. Alright, as a bonus, the added night waves can mean W3. I'm not sure what that symbol is. can bastardize even more songs from PvP for the new waves. I know a lot of people have thought of See Me Now as a frothy Waters replacement, Mothership Mudmouth's Targeted Strike, but I think Skablam would work better because of its frantic energy. Plus, FW's ever-increasing time signature would be referenced during the call response of the trumpet and berry sax. Meanwhile, Tentacle to the Metal would be replaced Fishing Frenzy, and of course there'd have to be a Now or Never cover for the extra wave. Speaking of music, remember I said Deep Cut was reporting live from the front lines after the 24-hour mark? That's what the second thing below the special icon. That's because I added one last big run specific mechanic after halftime to mirror tricolor battles. I call them celebrity cameos. Cameos are extra strong specials where if you call in one of the idols, or another special guest to save your bacon, or whatever the post-mammal equivalent is, once per shift, and I mean once, it doesn't even replenish for extra waves. For such a powerful tool, the work team has to agree on when to activate it, kind of like nukes that require two people to turn their keys at the same time. Clicking the left stick will illuminate 1/3 of the ring around the cameo icon for 5 seconds. If all three are lit up, it's time to shine. It's to be both because of the funny number and to account for people who are asleep at the wheel and or don't know how the mechanic works. I do love the idea of this. Like, this is getting... I can comprehend this. I don't need to know sound runs to be able to understand this. But the idea of being able to just call in the popular Splatoon NPCs to help you out during these heavily frenetic battles, that's cool. That's really fun. Kind of like almost an assist trophy kind of deal for Splatoon. Hell, I'd love to see this kind of implemented in Turf War. Like, if you can complete a certain amount of certain objective, you'll get like 5 seconds where one of those NPCs will spawn in the center and help you out for a second. That'd be really cool. You can get a Mega Laser where Shiver will appear riding the Master Mega. They'll fire 3 laser beams in the direction of any Salmonid, dealing 1200 points of armor-piercing damage and painting the ground. Just like in Phase 3 of her boss fight. We have Fry to appear, riding on the twirling, hollowed-up corpse of an Octostomp and send her eels to grab every golden egg in the path and ferry it to the basket. Ooh, okay. I think I'm following this, so... Where Shiver's summon here is all out damage, this is more of a recovery to make sure that you get every single egg on the screen. Okay. Also revised down players, yeah. Okay, this is cool, this is cool. You have different cameos that will give you different things based on what you might need at that specific moment in the run. We got Big Man diving into the floor like his boss fight and following... Oh, it's such a good boss fight. I mean, it's just the Mario Sunshine boss fight, but like that's why it's a good boss fight. Salmonids don't attack him directly as in canon, but the trails of Lesser and the attacks of bosses can happen as collateral damage. Also, like his boss fight, he gets smaller and creates decoys that follow nearby players as he takes damage. Launching Splat Bombs after each third of his health bar is depleted. This cameo is great for protecting yourself and others. If you have an E-Leader or a Hydra, it could save you multiple times. We could have Pearl jump in from the Grisco helicopter, busts out her killer whale at one team spawn, and lets out a fearsome battle cry, creating an area of effect the length of the map that instantly splats every Salmonid short of a king. Instead, they take 15% of their health bars if they stay in the killer whale the entire time. We have Marina launch a couple of her patented hyper bombs throughout the map. The players have to reach them, which can be a tall order, but detonating them causes a massive explosion that can instantly clear a basket area and otherwise make your job easier. We have Callie and Marie perform the Calamari incantation from the safety of the helicopter for the rest of the wave. On top of the moral boost, the players from the certified bop, this gives the Inkfish permanent tactic cooler buffs, which have been adjusted for Salmon Run. I'm sure that's amazing if I knew what a tactic cooler was. This means that you now get a full 51 AP of swim and run. Oh, well, okay, maybe if I just kept reading. AP of swim and run speed, quick respawn now refers to how long it would take to be revivable after being splatted, and the special saver and quick super jump have been swapped out with auto revives if you're in a life ring for 10 seconds. Helpful for if Kahuzuna? Is it? I think that's how you say that? And then Captain in Charge, Agent 3. Oh, nice! Also, small thing, but I love how Callie and Marie's segment, half of it is purple and the other half is green. That's a very nice like, artistic flair right there. The old one. I hate how Nintendo bungled the simplest possible name scheme in the name of their obsession with the number 3. Never did a salmon run, but they're a fast lunar. A Kelma equipped with a Grisco shooter, the same AI they use for their inner Agent 3 boss fight, but tuned more towards dealing with multiple enemies, and splashdowns available every 8 seconds or so. They can even super jump towards teammates, or even on top of tough bosses with them to give them some breathing room or to take them out. However, Mr. Grizz gave them a rental life ring so they can only be revived once before having to return to base. Interesting, so it's basically like, okay, let's get one more player into the mix to help us out for that one. Cool. Cameos don't have to stop there. Imagine calling in Seaside to play their tracks the right way and disrupt Salmon morale. Having Sashimori's Ryu Cheng pepper the perimeter with Rainmaker blasts. Saying, these weapons suck, and having Sheldon launch you your stated preferences. Or even having Goggles himself run around stunning bosses by pantsing them. Actually, scrap that last part. Finally, as a result of child labor laws not being as important as saving the city, to Mr. Grizz's eternal guilt, he's losing so much sleep over it. What a shame. How will he ever live with himself? A new mode is available for employees of the month who don't mind picking up a lot of overtime. Endless mode. As the name implies, this keeps going until you get splatted or fail to reach the quota for one wave. The hazard level starts at 60% and rises by 30% each wave until it hits 150%, where it then increases by 20% per wave until it caps out at 333%, the maximum hazard level. Like an extra work, collecting eggs past the quota bumps up the hazard level for the next wave, but not to incentivize not throwing, it also lets you skip waves. So, for instance, suppose that wave 1 has a quota of 10 golden eggs, passing takes you to wave 2, but getting 15 takes you to wave 3, and 20 to wave 4. In addition, getting eggs above double the quota slowly increases the chance for the next wave to have a King Salmonid, with all the scaled rewards that entails on top of the fact it gives you an extra cameo charge, not necessarily the same one you started with. However, like in normal Salmon Run, the chance resets to 0 after fighting one. Your high score is recorded as the highest wave you've reached. And of course, after the game's update cycle stops, it can be added for normal Salmon runs. I felt my brain, the song skipped half a beat there, and my brain just flat out stalled out while I was reading that last sentence. One more thing that doesn't really fit into either of the past two categories: more King Salmonids debuting during big runs, please. Seeing everybody come together and find new strategies for defeating Ouroboros during the Inkblot invasion was equal parts fun and flavorful. And while I understand the dev team can't crank out a new king every single season, that's what really takes a big run over the top. And then rewards. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Splatoon 3's maps really? It's a running gag in the community that every map is shaped like a tiny Tetris block. Inkable walls and flank routes are scarce, and the old maps are made worse when they're ported over for no good reason. Combine Mahi Mahi Resorts incarnations in Splatoons 1 and 3, respectively. This one, the Tetris block, has broken apart, and this one it's intact, which means that this one is more interesting for platforming and this one is not. I know nothing about Splatoon, but I'm going to assume that's what's being talked about here. You don't need to be a Splatoon player to recognize that it's been absolutely gutted. Fun fact, with the right weapon, you can shoot into the enemy base from your own base. Newer maps are slowly moving in the right direction, but they're still small Tetris blocks. There is hope, however. Throughout the series, some maps, Merchant Underpass, the Reef, Starfish Mainstage, have gotten renovations, being overhauled after being taken offline for a week or two. What does this have to do with Big Run? 2 words: community challenges. A lot of people, including Salmon Run Titan HD Hasme himself, have observed that it makes no sense that the big event for the co-op game mode exclusively has players competing against one another for the highest score. In addition, compared to Splatfests, the rewards for both Big Run and Extra Work are purely cosmetic. Sure, you get a shiny new locker decoration, but if you don't go into the locker room, it might as well not exist. So, of course, people came up with the idea of a higher stakes big run where if a player base doesn't get enough golden eggs, the stage is lost forever and becomes a regular salmon run map. And to that, I like to place a slice of bread on either side of their ears to make an idiot sandwich. Look, I get it, it's badass, but permanently taking away content that people played for as punishment is too severe and just not fun. I might actually argue against that, because anybody that used to play League, remember when Gangplank was literally killed and taken off the roster for a short amount of time? That would be so cool if for salmon runs, and maybe this is what they're going to suggest here. Salmon runs, if you lose a salmon run, they take the map away for like a couple of weeks and then bring it back after it's been either destroyed or repaired in some way to completely shake up how it's set up. That'd be really cool. But instead of using a stick, consider getting players to fight off the salmonids with a carrot. So remember back during the Splatcast dialogue when the Grisco announcement talked about financing repairs? Community challenges dovetail beautifully with the renovation concept. Picture this. At the start of one season, Mahi Mahi Resort is the target of a big run, and being submerged in what's heavily implied to be toxic waste for 48 hours is too much for the platforms in the pool they're in to take. As scheduled, it'll be out of rotation until the start of the next season, so about 3 months. However, Grisco can help finance renovations with the proceeds from the Golden Egg energy business, and it just so happens the blueprints look more like the left-hand image than the right. Each, let's say, 1 million golden eggs collected as a player base pushes towards the debut of new... Oh yeah, that's literally what there's... Yeah, I should stop coming up with my own ideas. Clearly, Capsid's on the same wavelength. 2 hours. With enough elbow grease from us and cold hard cash from Mr. Grizz, they can even get it renovated immediately after the salmonids are driven back. And it doesn't stop there. Imagine the end of Hammerhead Hallway and the return of Hammerhead Bridge, or being able to play on Beta Eeltail Alley in all its wide, flank-studded glory, or a version of Brinewater Springs with ink gushers and actually inkable walls. Or even better, the penultimate big run could even be used to reintroduce Splat Spray Rig on top of the usual new and returning maps for the season. The best part, you never again have to hear the phrase, "let them keep it." The rewards don't necessarily have to be map reworks either. Instead, a lump sum of eggs could unlock a wild card, or even an all Grisco rotation. Or there could be a big payout of scales to the entire player base, 1 per person per 1 million eggs. This way, big runs could continue even after the game's update cycle stops, letting the Salmon Run versions of PvP maps not be locked away in private battles like Shifty Stations were. As for personal rewards, first off, increase the reward track by a lot more. I'm talking making it functionally unlimited. I have more ability chunks than COD, just give me cash so I can satisfy my gambling addiction at the shellout machine. Secondly, give us 3 shots at getting a statue, 1 for golden eggs contributed each day, and a 3rd for top endless mode scores. Duplicates can be turned in for scales. Finally, give us souvenirs from the map we defended as a participation reward. I survived the big run at Wahoo World and all I got was this stupid t-shirt. A desktop version of the clam sculptures for Inkblot, a shiny piece of scrap from Undertow, etc. To minimize FOMO, these will also be available in the scale shop afterwards. And with that, I've given all my ideas for how big runs can be improved from a grindy, inconsequential... Shut up, Brain Age, we're not quite at you. Inconsequential sweatfest to a fun cooperative event that really feels like a biblical apocalypse. Well, I had the idea for an endless mode, but that feels more like the first description from the former. As such, I wish you all a great day, and a great rest of the Peasant's perspective. LOL Psych Extra Wave Halloween Horror Nights! Nintendo's partnering with Universal Studios to build Super Nintendo World in their parks. And so far they've been Mario heavy, and by Mario heavy, I mean literally just Mario with a hint of DK and a couple of Easter eggs. Universal Studios also has the yearly Halloween Horror Nights event where they put up haunted houses and scare zones. Basically outdoor haunted houses without a linear order. Obviously there aren't many Nintendo franchises that would be both popular enough to include in the park, and it's scary enough for an HN spot. Ah, no, man, Metroid would be perfect for that. But I have the feeling Splatoon is big enough and the big ones are serious enough to merit a scare zone. I mean, they can't do a King Boo Luigi's Mansion takeover every year. The concept for this one is a big run played more seriously. All the water features in that section of the park are dyed a murky green. Scare actors dressed and made up like injured inkfish, survivors hide to run and dart between safe floats. Hang on, this actually sounds really fun. And the Salmonid invasion is portrayed like with a mixture of props, animatronics, puppets, and guys in suits. Especially if the actors try to speak in like Splatoonish language. That'd be hilarious. The centerpiece would probably be a fiberglass and smoke machine replica of the 7 rings on a building rooftop. In an ideal world, this would be at Curious George Comes to Town, just so the giant bucket could act as a makeshift ink strike. But given that it's currently slightly too demolished to play host to anything, the Illumination area is a close second, if only for the mental image of a Quahog gnawing on a minion like it's a squeaky toy. At the entrance to the area, there's even a tiny Grizzco outpost, complete with a Mr. Grizz radio trying to reassure visitors that things are completely under control, but they should still splat salmonids on site, accompanied by a remix of the Universal Studios theme in the style of the music attributed to Grizzco Industries. And speaking of music, the soundtrack would slap. Imagine human music being perverted by W3 into a glitchy, discordant, cello-ridden, time signature fuck mess. Like just going off of musicians signed to Universal, the playlist could be like this. From Blinding Lights to something by Bad Bunny, Style, You Should See Me in a Crowd, Rocket Man, and much more. God. Oh, goodness. I don't know if I like or I'm terrified of the idea of Splatoonified versions of those. They'd probably have to play Seigen Takuzawa, the real-life cellist of W3, whose fictional counterpart is the firstborn child of Alkine, the hidden blade of the Akiharas? Yes, all Salmonid names are like that. I wish I enjoyed playing Splatoon. There's so much clear personality and love thrown into the franchise. Well, for essentially making an album essentially sellable at the gift shop, and it's obviously extremely impractical and niche, but hey, a man can dream. Also, this would be more of an HHN-wide thing, but once a night at a random time, a different speaker somewhere in the park each time plays the Whistle of Death, but just one speaker so you can tell it's coming from a specific spot, ideally one right behind you and or one that seems to be coming closer. They probably can't put the wolf himself there because one, DreamWorks, but two spoilers, but come on, he's perfect for it. Anyway, I don't know how to finish the doc now, so here's proof of what I meant by the hero shot. Okay! I will fully admit, I did not understand most of this. Like, there's, 80% of the nomenclature is going straight over my head. But even not knowing anything about how Salmon Run or these big runs work at all, it's so easy to see both, one, just clear passion in making the theming better. That's a little step that goes a long way in just making these events feel so much more impactful. And two, I really love the time and effort coming up with different ways to really flesh out the gameplay a bit more here. I especially love the idea of the rescue thing here, where you're trying to escort a survivor back during the Salmon Run big run thingamabobber, and it doesn't punish you if they die, it just causes a buff to the salmonids you're fighting, which makes it much harder, which is a much better way of doing an escort mission in any game. Like, this sounds fun. Like, if I had an option to play Splatoon 3 in front of me, and this was what was being offered, I think I'd probably play this. I'd spend money on this. This sounds fun. And I do especially love the idea of just these summons. Like, this would be so cool to just have in the game in general. Like, imagine during, a turf war, if you can capture, 4 separate points around the stage and hold them, you, summon Octavio or something, and he'll play out, 20 seconds of his boss fight, fighting for your team. Like, do the Ridley Pyrosphere thing, but in Splatoon during a turf war with DJ Octavio. That could be really fun. And the theme park stuff is just so much fun. I love the idea of haunted house Splatoon disaster movie horror. Having worked at a haunted house before, just the idea of just actors dressed up in really shitty Inkling costumes, just trying to go, Wummy, help me! Just not quite understanding how to do Inkling voices, but trying anyway. That'd be so good. That'd be so good. Right. Well done, Capsid. That was fun. That did thoroughly fry my brain, though. Like, God, that I don't know if I've ever had music that's harder to narrate alongside than that. So we're going to do, again, like I said at the start, I'm trying to do specifically non-crossover games, roster-focused, Smash Brothers kind of deals here, but wasn't quite enough to do a full episode of that, so I did grab 2 for the unique ways they are presented, especially this one because I need a break from talking. So returning, oh gosh, I have to mess with my, oh, hang on. Maybe like right here. Sorry, I have to mess with audio levels because we have the return of Gubsy. The person that did the Lucario rework video a couple of episodes ago is here with a very interesting character concept. So, let's just get right into this. We're gonna spend like a minute just trying to get audio levels right, so please bear with me.
Playable roster. Super Smash Bros. Has what I like to refer to as main character
we're talking
syndrome.
at the same time
it's only
right
natural
now.
Considering
Am I
how
too
many
loud?
series
Is
are
Gubsy
represented
too
that a
loud?
good
Is
number
Gubsy
of those
too
characters
quiet?
would be protagonists. But I
Keep
also see this
talking
philosophy
for like
bleed into
10
speculation
more
as well.
seconds, and
It's
then
always about getting
pause
in as
for the
many
chat to let me
franchises
know
as possible, as
what
many
sounds good,
companies
what
on
sounds
that
bad.
copyright list. What's the next big name?
Okay, how are we doing? Am I too loud? Is Gubsy too loud? How's the audio balance right now? I think I have like a 30-second delay with the chat right now. I'll let this play for a little bit longer.
On that front,
just talk
gotta
over
move on
it.
to the next one quick. However,
Which
when you
voice
neglect
is
double dipping into what's
easier
already
to comprehend?
here, you're not.
I'm a bit too loud. You're a bit too loud. Okay. Right, so let's get back to the start. I'm going to turn my own microphone down to maybe like right here. I'm going to boost Gubsy to as high as I can. I'll try not to interrupt. Like, if I have something to say, I'll try to pause.
When it comes to its playable roster, Super Smash Bros. Has what I like to refer to as main character syndrome. It's only natural considering how many series are represented that a good number of those characters would be protagonists. But I also see this philosophy bleed into speculation as well. It's always about getting in as many franchises as possible, as many companies on that copyright list. Once the next big name is in, it's time to wrap up discussion on that front. We gotta move on to the next one quick. However, when you neglect double dipping into what's already here, you're naturally going to look past some really interesting potential for designs. And it is something that Smash Bros. Has dabbled in on occasion. Oftentimes, this comes in the form of secondary protagonists, your player 2s, even the occasional villain. But once in a blue moon, we are treated to something much more interesting. Enter Piranha Plant. I love this inclusion so much. For the first time, maybe ever, the developers put all preconceived notions as to what a character can be aside. Sure, we've had joke characters before, but those have always been established characters, ones with substantial roles to play in their games, or parts of their anatomy that moves can be extrapolated from. This is just a plant. It's just a random weak enemy, and it doesn't even have the clout of being the weakest enemy in its own series. They just included it because they could, and it was amazing. The second plant was included in Smash. He endeared himself to millions of people pretty much overnight, all for a character that wasn't on the radar, for a character some could argue isn't even a character. It's something I wish that we could see more of. Imagine how fun a Koopa would be, or a Lionel for Hylia's sake. It made me
I'm just pausing for a second because that's such a cool idea. Like, dude, imagine a playable Lionel. Oh. Kind of fixes the whole complication of having a mounted, like people often suggest a mounted Fire Emblem character. But that gets kind of weird because you've got two bodies that just... How does knockback affect each of them? But if it's just a Lino where the mount is just... It's a centaur, that'd be so cool!
I want to take a crack at one of these characters myself, someone who is by no means a frontrunner in speculation, but has so much potential for an interesting moveset. You read the title, you know where I'm...
Also, I know this is strangely kind of controversial, but I think there's a weird semantics debate on what constitutes as a joke character. And, like, I'd argue just as long as the character makes you laugh based solely on their inclusion or something about their design, like, humor's subjective. You can't hard define what is and what isn't a joke character.
I'm going with this. What if the skeleton was a character in Smash Brothers? First things first, why the skeleton? Why not a villager or a creeper, or anyone else for that matter? Well, I firmly believe that when it comes to further representing Minecraft, the skeleton is the best choice. Minecraft doesn't really have a story, so there aren't really any other characters to include. Villagers are passive by nature, and despite being incredibly iconic, creepers are a one-trick pony. They blow up, that's it. It's a role I think would be much better fit for an assist trophy. Skeletons, meanwhile, have so much to pull from. For instance, they're active combatants. There are different species of skeletons, and, in terms of bringing a unique playstyle to the game, Smash has yet to include a character whose main focus of attack is archery. There are other characters that would fit the lattermost role, most notably Rivali or Decidueye, may he rest in peace, but I mean, come on, being able to play as a skeleton would be hilarious. So, first and foremost, the skeleton should be able to showcase what it means to be an archer in a Smash game. Alongside that, it should be representative of its many subspecies, and because it's from Minecraft, it should showcase the sandbox nature of the game, which means that it would make use of a lot of different items like Steve does, a lot of which the skeleton species can't actually use in-game. But I felt like taking that liberty as I wanted this moveset to showcase not just the skeleton species, but the creativity that is archery in Minecraft. For his attributes, the skeleton would be on the lighter side of the roster, given that there is literally no meat on those bones. He would also be a zoner naturally, so him being light would help quell the rage of those incapable of handling the existence of this archetype. He also wouldn't be the fastest on the ground, with movement similar to Steve. A character who is both slow and light sounds like a recipe for low tier, but don't worry, he'll have a lot of tricks to help augment his movement. In terms of animations, skeletons also have the simplistic animations that Steve has, so he would be very similar to him in that regard. Despite that, aiming with a bow has a surprisingly fluid feel to it in Minecraft, with a full 360-degree range of motion available, meaning that his animations would have plenty of clarity despite the simple actions. And if that's not enough, they could dip into the more detailed style of animation from dungeons if they had to. Skeleton's idle stance and walk would be taken directly from Minecraft, arms down, bow in hand, ready to shoot at a moment's notice. And, like Steve, his crouch is based off of the sneaking animation, but the skeleton doesn't have a crawl, or any additional movement options for that matter. So, without further ado, let's get into the moveset.
Presentation is immaculate. Like, it's so hard to give feedback when everything's kind of just perfect. Narration's good. Love that there was Bone Trussel. Bone Trussel? I've never known how to pronounce that right. It's Papyrus's theme in the background while playing about the skeletons, because of course. Like, I am riveted right now. I probably won't talk a lot just because I'm enjoying watching this.
Starting off simple, the jab and dash attack are both simple get-off-me tools. For the jab, it's a basic punch with the bow before pulling it back to shoot an arrow. It's a simple 2-hit jab that deals minor damage, but has some additional functionality that I'll get to later. And for the dash attack, the skeleton will lunge both his arms straight out. This is a loose reference to how they stance up when aggroed, as well as the generic attacking animations of a lot of Minecraft's hostile mobs. The forward tilt is the first move to be sourced from another skeleton type, specifically the wither skeleton. It's a downward slash with a stone sword. It's pretty much Steve's jab, but is a single strong hit instead of a combo move. Skeleton's up tilt is also a sword move, being an upward thrust with both arms, taken from the wither skeleton's default attacking animation. It's a pretty standard launcher that doesn't send very far, meaning that you can juggle people with it at early percents. And his down tilt is a low to the ground swipe with the sword, basically Steve's ledge attack. Functionally, it does expected down tilt stuff. It's not particularly fast, but it's a reliable combo starter up close. And for his last move, Skeleton's forward smash is a copy of Steve's, a sideways slash with the sword with an accompanying sweep effect. Now to put that archery skill skill's a good use. The skeleton's up smash has it lob a TNT block above its head before detonating it with a fire arrow. It would function a lot like Snake's up smash, with the sweet spot at the explosion and a scooping hitbox into it. Skeletons are capable of spawning with flame bows, and fire arrows can set off TNT, so this is a loose reference to that. Also, for the sake of clarity, any alternative arrow type will be distinguished by an effect on the tip of the arrow, have it be a small flame, potion particles, what have you. That same bow is used for his down smash, having the skeleton shoot 2 fire arrows to either side of him. After shooting the ground, the fire lingers for a second, causing minor damage if made contact with, although it doesn't cause flinching. Moving off the ground and into the air, it's time to talk about Skeleton's aerials. I struggled for a bit when thinking of what the Skeleton's neutral air should be, as nothing really stood out to me, but I knew that I wanted it to tie into their species in some way, so it eventually led me to this idea, which I admit is a bit silly. Skeletons share a trait with zombies in that they burn up in the sunlight, and in the case of zombies, they actually can spread that fire to you by getting close. So, for Skeleton's neutral air, he will abruptly be set aflame, dealing fire damage to those nearby as he flails his arms around in a panic. I imagine it having a similar flow to Mewtwo's, with some drag down setups at certain percents. The Skeleton's forward air has it pull out a crossbow and use the multi-shot enchantment, shooting out 3 arrows that fan out in front of him a short distance. Skeletons can't actually use crossbows in Minecraft, but I've always thought that it fit their aesthetic, and allowing the skeleton to use one greatly increases his moveset potential, so I've decided to let him have one. This move is similar to Villager's forward air, although it's quite a bit slower as it takes time to load and release the crossbow, but its reward is higher, both in terms of damage and positional advantage, especially considering how it has a minor pushback property, as the recoil of the bow sends him backwards as he shoots. The back air has the skeleton swing the bow behind, kind of like how Steve swings his pickaxe. It's fairly disjointed and is pretty quick, but very much lacks kill power, similarly to Inkling's back air. Skeleton's up air is an aerial version of his up tilt, an upward thrust with the sword. It's a pretty simple move, so I'll leave it at that. If you can believe it, this is actually the last move to use the sword. Everything from here on out ties directly into his archer game, like his final aerial, down air. For it, the skeleton will shoot an instant damage tipped arrow below him. Think Mega Man's down air, but without the spike. Despite being a tipped arrow, it would act more like a splash potion, having it travel down a short distance before exploding into a cloud of particles. This move would be strongest at the explosion, dealing major damage if spaced correctly. Next are the throws. Considering how well he plays at mid-range, I don't think he should prioritize grappling, so for the exception of one, none of his throws would be very great. So, for Skeleton's grab, he will shoot out a spectral arrow as a tether. Anyone caught by it will be marked by the glowing effect, showing that they are in the grabbed state, and the pummel will be a continuous shot of arrows at point blank. The forward and up—
That's so sick. Oh gosh, the Smash needs to do more things with, like, grabbing someone without being directly next to them. Like, there's obviously tether grabs, but all of those pull people towards you. But the idea of having them in that grab space and just pummeling them by shooting them with more arrows, that's so cool!
Up throws would be analogs to Steve's piston, but instead of being a piston, it would be a dispenser. One of the many uses for a dispenser in Minecraft is to shoot arrows, so I thought that it would fit right into this moveset, shooting straight out for the forward throw and straight up for the up throw. The back throw would have the skeleton equip a punch bow to shoot the foe straight backward. Punch is an enchantment in Minecraft that increases the knockback a mob takes after being hit with it. Considering the nature of the enchantment, I think it would make sense for this to be a mercy kill option at later percents. And lastly, the down throw will have the skeleton slam the foe to the ground with one arm, before shooting 3 poison-tipped arrows into them with a crossbow, popping them into the air and causing damage over time for a short while. Its viability as a combo throw falls off fairly quickly, so I wanted to incentivize using it after it surpasses those percent thresholds with an additional kind of reward. At this point, I hope you realize that, despite being a bow user, a lot of Skeleton's moves lack full-screen presence. His disjoints are fairly tame for projectile standards, and are often slow and telegraphed. This was all intentional, as I didn't want the strength of his normals to overshadow his more potent projectile options, all of which can be observed through his special attacks, and believe me, this is where things start to get crazy. I think it's rather funny that it took me this long to get around to saying this. For Skeleton's neutral special, he does what skeletons do best. He charges up his bow and shoots an arrow. This is a pretty simple projectile, akin to Link's bow, gradually increasing in power as you charge it. However, unlike Link, once it reaches the maximum charge, you'll be forced to shoot it. You'll also be able to move when charging, but you'll be slowed down considerably when doing so, allowing for some tricky movement mix-ups as you ready the projectile. Its power isn't anything to write home about, but it's a reliable zoning tool for the entire match. As you'd expect, this is the tool in the Skeleton's kit that he relies on the most, but that's not all this move has to offer. You know how angling Peach's forward smash changes what kind of weapon she hits you with? Well, that mechanic also applies to this move. Without holding a direction, neutral special will default to the normal arrow, but holding up while charged—
God, I wish... This is one of the things I put in my own movesets so much. And I'm glad to have the validation of, like, yeah, it's a good move. I wish more characters had things like that, where if you hold an ability in different directions, it does different things. It's a very easy way to make a character's kit more diverse without making it overly complicated.
Charging will have it turn into a slowness arrow, courtesy of the stray mob. This projectile is considerably slower than the default arrow. I'm talking Toon Link's arrow, maybe slower, and can easily be destroyed by hitting it. But if it makes contact with an opponent, their movement speed will actually decrease. It won't be by very much or for very long, but it allows for some well-needed breathing room against fast characters, as well as something to run behind to aid in a frontal assault. As long as an arrow is out, or the opponent is slowed down, a second slowness arrow cannot be shot, which is to say that using
I don't know if I love or I'm absolutely terrified by the idea of a zoner with the ability to slow. That's scary.
this move is a commitment, sacrificing a safe and spammable zoning tool for one with greater reward. Speaking of a commitment, by
Yeah, right, Gubsy? They only do it for Peach, but there are so many different characters that could do something with it. Like, take some more inspiration from your existing roster like we took.
aiming down while charging, the skeleton will instead pull out a crossbow and begin loading it with a firework rocket. This move breaks the trend of the automatic release by letting you store the charge, and is the strongest projectile he has under normal circumstances. However, it's only possible to shoot this move after the crossbow is fully charged, and that can only occur after a lengthy charging animation. Not to mention that once it's charged, it overrides the entire neutral special. When the charge is released, the skeleton will shoot out the rocket, causing a very powerful explosion a set distance away. However, the only part of this move with a hitbox is the explosion, meaning that if you don't space it correctly, you'll miss and be in for a nasty punish. Because it's so precise, this move is only viable to go for when you are absolutely sure that it will hit, and since holding onto it means giving up a more reliable projectile, the fact that Skeleton lacks full screen presence elsewhere in his kit starts to become a much bigger issue. Also, the color of the firework as it explodes will be random. It wouldn't affect gameplay, it's just some visual flair. That might make it sound complex, but it's a very simple attack. Press the button to shoot an arrow, hold up for a slower one, and down for an explosion. Next is the side special, which actually ties directly into the neutral special. Yeah, I'm still not done with that. In Minecraft, there's a rare mob configuration called spider jockeys. They're skeletons that spawn riding spiders. These mobs are considerably more dangerous than regular skeletons, because they maintain the sharp shooting while being incredibly mobile. In Smash, this would be interpreted as a simple burst movement tool, with some additional mechanics to keep in mind. On use, the skeleton will spawn a spider underneath its feet and start charging forward. The spider will dash a bit faster than Skeleton's run speed, and would act as a launching hitbox to anyone it makes contact with. While dashing forward, you'd actually be able to charge and shoot your neutral special while moving. Although with the length of the animation, you'd probably only be able to get off one shot at most. This includes the firework rocket, by the way. If you had a hard time lining up a shot for it before, imagine it now. After a short time running, the skeleton will jump off as the spider it was riding disappears. Sounds like a fun move, right? Well, that's not all. Spiders have the unique ability to climb walls, so when using this move, if you collide with a wall or the side of a stage, the spider will cling itself to the wall and start climbing upwards, allowing for an aid in recovery and potentially some wonky arrow angles. This idea was, what's the word I'm looking for? No, not that. Yeah, that's the one. Inspired by Max Ham's take on close combat in his Smash Moveset video for Cleavor. So, thanks for that. Alright, so here's where things get silly. There's a certain technique in
Cleavor video is also pretty good.
Minecraft that players can do where they shoot themselves with a bow enchanted with punch to launch themselves long distances. It's not really a thing you see anymore, or ever to be honest, but it's still in the game and may have some very fringe use cases if you don't have an elytra and don't feel like bridging. Recently, I found myself reminiscing on how I used to do that all the time on servers due to how fun it was. And I eventually thought, that would make a really funny up special. This stupid idea is pretty much the reason why I wanted to make this moveset. It's a really silly character doing a bunch of silly things, and this move embodies that. So, Skeleton's up special is Punch Bow. On use, the skeleton will aim his bow upwards and shoot an arrow into the sky, before jumping into it to launch himself in an upwards direction. When the skeleton is sent flying, his body turns into a high-speed projectile, flailing so uncontrollably that colliding with a solid surface will have him bounce off, kind of like the untechable spin from Smash 4. The only thing that can cancel this animation is if he grabs a ledge, and if you don't do that, then prepare to fall to your doom. That being said, the skeleton's body is an active hitbox during the launch, so you can use it offensively, it just isn't very very wise to do so. If I had to equate this move to anything, the closest would be Diddy Kong's jetpack. An all-out, reckless attack that is a weakness that he doesn't in any way need, but is really, really funny. Plus, it's not like it's your only option for recovery. Remember, the spider can climb stage walls. And last, but certainly not least, the down special. Despite the fact that a lot of the skeleton's moves aren't necessarily things that he can do in-game, I don't feel like I've made any major leaps in logic. After all, dispensers, crossbows, tipped arrows, they all tie into the archery theme. As is the same with this move. However, more than any other move, I will be taking a massive creative liberty with this one, to such an extent that it barely resembles its original incarnation. But I think how fun of a mechanic this would be more than justifies that. One of my favorite moves in the entire game to use is Link's remote bomb. I love how the simple decision to let it be affected by physics allows it to be manipulated by Link's entire kit, for a lot of tricky setups and really cool looking combos. It's such a simple move, but it can lead to so many galaxy brain plays that I always love to watch. I think giving the skeleton a dynamic tool in the same boat would be really interesting, and would likewise allow for a ton of creative expression, which is very much Minecraft. So, for Skeleton's down special, he will place down a target block. At first glance, it doesn't seem to do anything. If left alone, it would sit idly by for a while before disappearing into thin air. That is, until you attack it. In the first of many creative liberties taken with this block, attacking it will have it be launched in the direction you hit it, and in Smash, it would be affected by gravity. If you hit it up in the air, it'll eventually come right back down. When it's in the state of being launched, it turns into a moderately powerful projectile. This alone is a powerful zoning tool, giving the skeleton, and anyone else who hits it, access to a movable object capable of gimping, killing, stage denial, anything you can think of. But here is where the target aspect of this block comes into play. Under normal circumstances, hitting it with a move will limply knock it away, but hitting it with any of the skeleton's arrows will launch the block much further in specific angles with specific effects relating to what move it's hit by. Like for instance, the down smash. Hitting the block with a fire arrow at point blank will have it bounce away at a 45-degree angle, perfect for covering an enemy's jump in. The forward air sends the block at a strictly horizontal angle, allowing for you to snipe people across the stage with it. You could use the second hit of jab to knock it off stage, in order to confirm it into a down air, which would now spike as the target block flies downwards. And that's not even the end of it. In Minecraft, the closer you hit a target block to its center point, the stronger the redstone current it emits. Why don't we take that literally? Why not make it so that when hit by any of the skeleton's neutral special projectiles, instead of altering the trajectory, it causes the block to stop in place and surge with electricity, causing damage to anyone near. And God forbid you hit that block with a firework rocket, that thing isn't just surging with power, it's exploding. There are so many things that you could do with this move. So many insane plays, across the stage snipes, chain reactions, intentional confirms, happy little accidents, so on and so forth. And to be completely honest, while this is not at all how the target block functions in Minecraft, I still feel like it gets the spirit of it across. Hit the block with an arrow in just the right way and be rewarded for doing so. Now, a tool like this would be incredibly over-centralizing without any drawbacks, so the catch is that the block has a certain amount of health. If it reaches 0 before you get it to where you want to detonate it, you're out of luck. You can also only have one active at a time, it has a cooldown after it's been destroyed, and other players can hit it back at you like Diddy's Gordos. Regardless, it's still an incredibly versatile tool, and would be, without a doubt, incredibly fun to use. The last move to cover is the final smash, and for it I've saved one of the most memorable aspects of the skeleton's repertoire. Upon activation, the skeleton will get struck by lightning, turning itself into a skeleton horseman before charging forward. Anyone hit by the charge will be blown into the middle of rainy plains in the dead of night. The skeleton, from atop a cliffside, beckons orders to attack as hundreds of additional skeleton horsemen, strays, and wither skeletons charge forward below, and attack the foe relentlessly. Once the smoke clears, the camera zooms into the player skeleton as he readies a crossbow, loads it with a firework rocket, and shoots a massive explosion in the shape of a creeper head at the opponent, turning the screen white and launching them away as the cinematic ends. I knew from the beginning that I had to include the skeleton horseman in the moveset, but I didn't want it to be another charge.
That's like, if this was a Maximilian dude, rate the super, that's an easy 10 out of 10. Like, my god. Also, like, straight up, like, cinematic photography, like, right there. Well done with that.
Charge forward special move, given that he already has one of those with the spider jockey, so making it his final smash, alongside getting the other skeleton species in on the action, felt like the right call. Just don't ask what the wither skeleton is doing out of the nether. So, that's the moveset. But before I wrap up, I want to discuss the extra stuff. For the skeleton's intro animation, he will appear from a spawner. For taunts, his up taunt will have him put his bow into hammer space before pulling out a stone sword and raising it to the sky. His side taunt will have it perform an idle animation from Minecraft Dungeons, where he spins his skull like a top before stopping it in place. And his down taunt will be based on the skeleton's dying animation, having him dramatically fall over as he puffs into smoke, with another skeleton spawning in his place. I love the idea that this skeleton just spawned into here one day and is now being forced to fight for his life, and when he's killed, he's just replaced by another one. That makes me laugh. For victory screens, the first one will have a skeleton horse appear by itself before being struck by lightning, summoning a group of skeleton horsemen that stand behind the player skeleton as he shoots his bow into the sky. The second victory screen will have a creeper walk into view before being shot from off screen, with the skeleton running up to grab the dropped music disc. And his final victory screen will take a cue from Piranha Plant and show Steve being killed by a group of zombies, spiders, slimes, etc., before zooming out to show the skeleton watching happily from the sidelines. After all, he's a hostile mob. That is his ultimate goal. For alternate costumes, he could use the different armor sets in Minecraft, as skeletons can spawn wearing armor, and Steve left that aspect unrepresented. Player 1 would be the default skeleton model, Player 2 would be leather, Player 3 gold, Player 4 chainmail, Player 5 an enchanted iron helmet, and Player 6 diamond. And for Players 7 and 8, they could be alternate characters like the zombie and enderman are, with the wither skeleton, sized down to fit the model, and the stray. When killed in a stamina match, the skeleton will drop his skull, which can be picked up as an item to be thrown around at other players. This is a reference to how wither skeletons can drop their skulls on death. The throwing around part is just for fun. And last but not least, the boxing ring titles would be the Supernatural Sniper for the skeleton, Henchman of the Wither for the wither skeleton, and the Bone-Chilling Drifter for the stray. For a stage, I could see there being one based on the Nether, as it's an incredibly iconic location in Minecraft with the same kind of diverse biome layouts that Minecraft World has, as well as being the only dimension to house both regular and wither skeletons. To give a brief example of what the different forms might look like, I could see one based on the Nether Wastes biome, where the fighting takes place on top of a Nether Fortress bridge, and a Soul Sand Valley layout that has fossils present as platforms. I could also see a layout in a Crimson Forest where you fight on a bastion, a form that takes place on top of the mushroom trees in the Warped Forest, and a hazardous form based on the Basalt Deltas, with lava pockets that act similarly to the Mario Maker stage. And while I'm talking about the stage, I'd really like to see more justice given to the music selection. Supposedly, they excluded music from the original game because it was too peaceful for the tone of Smash, but that's stupid and wrong. Plenty of the music discs in the game fit Smash perfectly fine, and even if they didn't, they do remixes for a reason. For this stage alone, I could see the inclusion of the Pig Step, Ward, and Mellow High discs, as well as remixes of Aria Math and Concrete Halls. And for Minecraft World, remixes of Sweden, Wet Hands, Mice on Venus, the credits theme, and a medley of Cat and Dog and both Droopy songs. Also, if they included a remix of Com 4, then I'd be satisfied for life. If you know, you know. So, what do you think? At a glance, the skeleton is a very humble creature. Sure, it's well known, it's a generic enemy from the highest selling game of all time, but it's just that, a generic enemy. But once you dig deeper, no pun intended, you'll find a very fascinating character. Someone with a large pool of tricks to pull from, an unrepresented weapon type, an incredibly rich neutral and combo game, so on and so forth. It's always fun to see those big names, knowing that the wishes of millions of people have finally come true after so long. It's what kept the Smash hype alive for all of these years. But don't think a character doesn't have potential just because they're simple on the surface. It's always important to keep an open mind, and remember that some of the most interesting designs often come from the most unexpected of places. Oh, also, they would never do this and I totally get it, but I really wish that they would just add Terraria music to the Minecraft stage. That game has a fantastic soundtrack, and I want to jam out to it while I play. Like, seriously, listen to this music.
Like top 10 soundtracks, let's be honest. One of the most atmospheric soundtracks of any game I've ever played. Okay. Thank you for giving my voice a break. I desperately needed that. But obviously, that was absolutely phenomenal. Wait 1 second. I need to first grab and copy the link to the video into the chat. Alright, everyone is required to like and comment on that video, preferably also play it in the background while I'm talking. We've already watched it, but like make sure that it gets that engagement. Also, just watch it again if you want to. It's incredibly well made. But for some proper feedback, I always love it when people describe their design philosophy for any kind of Smash moveset. Like, if you go into a character design with specific probably go into any design with specific goals, the design will always come out more complete off of the tail end. Because you're actively working towards something. I think this is one of the best implementations of, like, an archer moveset I've ever seen. Like, the only one I think would really compete is Ditto Master's Anna, where you focus on her being a trickster. And even then, there was a lot of that was focused more on the shopkeeping and other Fire Emblem sides of it. This is just... The goddamn target block is such a good idea. Like, taking that same concept of Link's bomb, but, like, actively changing how it interacts with various aspects of the skeleton's moves. That's so cool! Like, having the target react in different ways if it's been hit by something that's on fire, or something that's one of the firework arrows that explodes. I love all of the creative liberties so much. I feel like people are too hesitant to do stuff like that. Like, if something could feasibly work, and it makes the design so much better, then yeah, absolutely. Why didn't a target block work like that? It's still hearkening to how the actual goal of a target is. You shoot it, and you get rewarded for it. I love the idea of the spider jockey actively climbing walls. Like, yes, inspired by Max Ham, obviously, but I'm sure Max Ham was inspired from something else. There's very few original ideas in the world in general. It's about how they are implemented, and I think this implementation is fantastic. And the stupid... Like, I never knew this was a thing. This thing. Like, what the hell is that? It's cool. Like, if I saw somebody in Minecraft pull that off, I've never heard this before, I would be so I think they were hacking, probably. But the ability to shoot yourself up and literally launch you from the projectile, like, that kind of... I think somebody in the chat said Minecraft rocket jumping, which is exactly what it is. That's so cool. And, like, imagine since this is a projectile, imagine how funny it would be to just pocket that recovery, or reflect it and have the punch send that straight down. That could be a very funny move. But yeah, overall, like... But what do y'all want me to say? I think this is essentially perfect. I think the presentation is fantastic, the narration is great, the audio balancing between the narration and the music is sublime, which is a very hard sweet spot to meet. Well done. And that's... I love this cinema. I want to watch this again.
Skeleton will get struck by lightning, turning itself into a skeleton horseman before charging forward. Anyone hit by the charge will be blown into the middle of rainy plains in the dead of night. The skeleton, from atop a cliffside, beckons orders to attack as hundreds of additional skeleton horsemen... The skeleton, from forward. Anyone hit by the charge will be blown into the middle of rainy plains in the dead of night. The skeleton, from atop a cliffside, beckons...
shot of the Skeleton King looking out across his army.
Orders to attack as hundreds of additional skeleton horsemen, strays, and wither skeletons charge forward below and attack the foe relentlessly. Once the smoke clears, the camera zooms into the player skeleton as he readies a crossbow, loads it with a firework rocket, and shoots a massive explosion in the shape of a creeper head at the opponent, turning the screen white and launching them away as the cinematic ends. I knew from the beginning that I had to include the skeleton horsemen in the moveset, but I didn't want it to be another charge forward special move.
It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, well done, Gubsy. If y'all aren't subscribed to Gubsy, fix that right now. Some absolutely phenomenal Smash movesets. All right. thanks to Gubsy, I'm feeling rejuvenated and ready to tackle the next thing. So let's grab this one. I've seen so many different ideas from this person, and given their first one, I've wanted to check out all of them, but it was a fairly recent submission, so I've been trying to wait a few times. But with the focus of this particular episode, it is the perfect opportunity to bring back Emilio. And I forgot to update the... One second. I used the same overlay for each individual entry, and I forgot to update. There we go. Okay. From Emilio, an idea he calls Star Fox Supernova. Good morning, afternoon, or night, whenever you are reading this document. Oh, music. Sorry, I got used to having somebody else deal with the music for a second. There we go. Oh, I gotta change the audio levels as well. 1 second. Boost myself back up, put the music back down. There we go. Today I want to bring another video game idea thingy and stuff, but unlike the last time that I took one character and used it as a way to develop a gameplay and expand a universe, that was the Daisy idea, for people that, if people remember. The fantastic roller derby Daisy. This time, I'm not going to be focusing solely on a character, but the entire concept of a series, and how it can evolve so it can connect more with what the people expect from a video game nowadays. I must say this idea involves themes like death and... Oh, Jesus, okay. So if someone is sensible to the topics, I'm really sorry, and please be careful if you continue. Either way, I will warn when the topic will be handled by more respectful ways. Without further ado, let's go to this idea thingy and stuff. So, yes, Star Fox sure is a dead franchise, isn't it? For those who don't know, Fox from the Super Smash Bros. Series. He is not from Melee, but from an entire franchise that has seen better days. This being Star Fox. Wikipedia describes it as, Star Fox is a popular video game franchise of the shooting game genre in the purest shooter style produced and distributed by Nintendo. Leaving aside the fact that they go out of their way to call this franchise popular, it has some things that are true, being the biggest one that is from a shooting game genre, not only on rail shooters, but shooters in general. And this is where we are going to have our focus. And by the way, for everyone wondering, we're not going to do a Fortnite offering, so we can do better. So, Star Fox, okay, it's a shooter. What is it about, again? Well, the story is kind of weird, but in a good way. Kinda okay, so simplifying things, we play as Fox McCloud, a furry fox alien who has a living as a mercenary in his homeland Corneria, where he usually takes jobs from the Cornerian army because he is one of the best pilots in all of the Lilat system. The system where all this space adventures happens. The continuity of the series is very confusing because they're constantly doing the exact same game over and over again, but technically Fox is between 18 and 27, as well as having some other persistent characteristics. Being a very competent leader, responsible, astute, sagacious, I have no idea how to pronounce that word, wise, having an inferiority complex because of the death of his father, and generally caring for his allies, but also determined to defend them from the forces of evil. Kind of like every Nintendo protagonist, but cool and yeah. So we have a space adventure with a furry protagonist. Okay. Nintendo has always been kind of special, and this is not the exception, being inspired by a space series like Star Trek, but with puppets. And that's how they make this series? Clearly the reason the first game was so revolutionary was because of the pseudo 3D that shows in the Super Nintendo, as well as the sequel being an evolution of the formula in a completely 3D environment. This series... The series has a birth thanks to having innovation and ambition as their guiding flag, taking the on-rail shooter genre and elevating that to the standard of the era. That's when they decide to throw all of this aside. The Star Fox problem. When Star Fox Adventures came, it was very controversial, to say the least, effectively dividing the community in two sides. Those who liked the past Star Fox and those who liked the new ones, because this game was clearly not an on-rail shooter, but an adventure, Zelda-like game with dinosaurs and magic staffs. This clearly was an effect for being a reskin for a game that had nothing to do with Star Fox universe except maybe the character design. And even there, it was very off the mark. Star Fox basing the cast on puppets in contrast to the more real, more animal-looking from Adventures. This problem translated itself into Star Fox Assault, where they tried to rectify implementing both the on-rail shooter as well as on-foot missions reminiscing from Star Fox Adventure, or at least the premise. Then came Star Fox Command, which looked at Fire Emblem and said, hey, I can do that, to finally remake the same game not one time, but 2 times, until the franchise finally was kept under the Rogue, eventually having Star Fox Original 4 times. So this is a bummer, but continuity was trying to hold itself until the directives said F it and told the same story again and again, as well as having every game being a totally different genre, alienating its fanbase because they didn't know what to expect. If this was going to add controls after Star Fox 64, this has always been kind of an issue. Star Fox finally didn't know what to do. They tried to make everything up and they ended up doing nothing. Why did all of this happen? The truth is that nobody knows except Nintendo, but we can analyze. And I think I have a pseudo-answer. And it is not very difficult if we really think this through. That is because this is the same philosophy of the Plumbers Company innovation. Star Fox, since its very first game, was a revolution in technology, effectively recreating 3D environments in a console with low power, then perfecting the movement in the 64, then offering an absolutely different game experience, trying to blend 2 styles of the game to offer something completely different again. So when they finally gave up, they came back to the one that was the Golden Star, to finally recreate that again with another revolution in the way to play it. Utilizing the unique characteristics of the Wii U, the gamepad controller, destroying all the little aspects of the story that this franchise has built. While yes, Nintendo succeeded to make an innovative series, the truth is that this innovation was not guided or controlled, making gaming ideas unpolished, controls hurtful and awful, and destroying characters to make them but a puppet for tutorials. As ironic as that is, all because they refuse to treat this game as a game and more as an experiment. So, is there a solution to revive this series after all this? Nope. No matter what they do, well, it begins with something completely new or sticking to the original, there will always be this dissonance between fans of the series. However, I think we can make a game used to attract new gamers, as well as celebrate some parts of the complete series. So, how can we do this? Well, first we gotta choose a gameplay genre from all of the ones that this franchise has had. So, which to choose? Personally, I like the attempt from Star Fox Assault to try to culminate elements from all the story and gameplay this franchise has had until then. I also think that the lack of shooting games from the big end, taking into consideration that Metroid Prime 4 is somewhere in the limbo dimension, makes a big opportunity to make a shooting game in a sci-fi universe where furries can save the whole planetary system. So, we have a space shooter. What else? Well, this is where we gotta use our head and think, and take borrowed elements from Starlink or No Man's Sky. We can make not an open world, but an open galaxy, with the freedom to explore all of the Lilat system, saving it from the evil hands of Andros. Dixie says, you can hear how tired Duke is reading all this. It's hard to narrate for long stretches of time. Plus, correct me if I'm wrong, Emilio, but this has been translated from Spanish to English. I'm recognizing a lot of... I work with a lot of Spanish speakers, and we'll communicate with each other by using Google Translate on our phones. And I'm seeing a lot of the same, like, out-of-order words. So I'm trying to mentally, like, re-narrate this while putting words in the right place. With this level of freedom, and that's a bit harder to do. I enjoy it though. It's It's helped me feel like I'm actually starting to, like, get how the language flows. With this level of freedom, we need limitations. Being obviously just the Lilat system, it can work very much like Breath of the Wild, or at least the idea of it. If you see something, you should be able to go there, turning the massive mix of celestial bodies into different divisions from and incredibly big worlds. Why should we want to go anywhere? Well, obviously, the cool factor is that we replenish all these worlds with life and civilizations. We can visualize easily the different planets with the different ideas they're conveying, apply a kind of culture, for example. Corneria, where most of civilian life lives, Corneria is actually the capital of the Lilat system, working as a recurrent base of operation, but not this time. I read in English, but I kind of use Translate. No, I totally get it. Trying to learn different languages has severely nuked my opinion of just trying to keep perfect pronunciation or grammar. I think as long as you're communicating yourself in a way that people understand, that's all that really matters at the end of the day. So long as we can be understood. I think Fox would put his base in other planets in particular. However, Corneria would be a neat planet would be a planet near your base, constantly having to travel there so we can complete different missions for the Federation, having a perfect amount of nature and machine, as Corneria is a beautiful place to live. Venom is the biggest planet in the Lilat system and the base of operation for the Andros Empire. Usually we'd be able to see this planet and would probably like to avoid it at all costs, unless you are specifically being called for a mission. And even then, nothing assures you that the soldiers won't take your ship down. A highly mechanized planet with not a trace of green life. Sauria is a highly natural planet. Sauria is the perfect contrast from Venom, where, inspired by the Mayan culture, the dinosaur citizens live in harmony with the planet and their deities. Maybe you'll even find a small familiar Triceratops. Even though a jungle full of dinosaurs wouldn't be exactly peaceful, maybe they sent someone to explore. We got Titania, a vast desert with lots of ruins from a distant civilization. Titania works as a parallel for Egypt, having locales live hidden in the ruins with a lot of water and alimentation problems, but thriving in the study of the sky and astronomy, having numerous observatories and laboratories. Fishina, I think I'm saying that right, the literal definition of the ice world. Fishina would have a small civilization inspired by the Groenlanders or the Antarctic people. The people would have a very peaceful life, though they will suffer very much in the winters with food supplies, as well as the different climates and temperature changes. Fortuna, once another very green planet. This time, Fortuna will be a very rocky place, where all the green life has been petrified thanks to the exploitation of the area and volcanic eruptions. The civilization here will be trying to reclaim the nature of the planet, with different results depending on if you help them or not. Ooh, that's fun, that's fun. I love the idea of taking that idea of being able to affect the environment around you and translating it on a galactic level. That's so cool. Katina, a planet very similar to Corneria, only on drugs. Katina will have enormous mushrooms and vegetation, as well as a green sky on the day and constructions alongside the aesthetic, but keeping the technological sweetness from Corneria. We got Macbeth, a very industrialized planet. Macbeth is the main source of material for all the Lilat systems, a very rocky planet where maybe you'll be contracted to help in the operations. Solar is literal hell. This is the archetypical fire world, where civilization is very limited, being primarily scientific, studying the nature of the planet. Hopefully they didn't send you to the surface anytime soon. Aquas is another archetypical world, this time water. Aquas is filled with water, and the only civilization will be under this element, working very much like Atlantis, where the citizens will live in hydrophobic domes to not drown, but also to go in and out. Eladard is a very polluted planet, this one no longer having salvation, and the little people who live here only stay for tradition. Memories are because they foolishly think they can save it. They will need to accept the truth someday. Papatoon? Papetoon? I like Papatoon, that's fun to say. We're going with Papatoon. Usually a pretty generic desert-like planet, the home planet of Fox this time will be a more important part of the game. Fox isn't from Corneria? I did not know that. Instead of being at the end of the galaxy, Papatoon would be on the center, being the perfect place for your central base. The people will be mostly farmers and agriculture. And last but not least, the Aparoid home planet. Once the planet where the invasive species Aparoids lived, this time the Aparoids, no longer controlled by their evil queen, will be a much more chilled civilization where this bug-like creature will live in these hives. I don't think they have the hang of not needing a monarch, so maybe they need help in more diplomatic manners. Democracy, maybe. Would you be able to help them? Among other planets and civilizations that I can't think of right now, you could help or destroy them depending on which missions you choose. After all, Fox would not have a problem working for bad people as long as the player chooses to. Some of you might be saying, well, what is he talking about? Well, for that I'm going to enter my favorite part of every game, the story. Fox McCloud is an odd character, a stereotypical hero with a quirky side. Fox has always had a story fact that has always appeared to haunt him: the death of his father and living under his shadow. It's almost like the writer doesn't know how to make his character interesting except this character trait, which can be lazy, or we can make this a core to deconstruct this white canvas. So Fox is a mercenary. How might he work as one? A mercenary is a soldier or person with military experience who fights or participates in a war for personal and economic gain, usually with little or no regard for the ideology, nationality, political, or religious preferences of the party for whom he is fighting. As you might see, a mercenary is not a heroic figure, but is a grey one who is only looking for personal benefit. Fox is different, though, because he will never attempt to work for someone as evil as Andros. What's the fun in that, right? We are going to be able to do missions for a price, selecting who we want to work with, giving us the freedom to judge which cause is more honorable, or more profitable. For you see, Fox is normally a team player, but in this iteration of Fox, he is a solo player. Since his last assault with his team, are we going Jaded Fox? Hell yeah! Which Fox almost died and or got everyone on his team killed, blaming himself for this foretold catastrophe. Fox would leave the team, working as a mercenary and throwing himself into the dirtiest of works. Fox is only but a shadow of his former self. So in the present, Fox is alone in what could be called a base, but practically being a garage in the middle of nowhere. As we progress with the missions and acquire money, we will be able to enhance the base for new upgrades, vehicles, weapons, etc., as well as contacting old friends and or working for them. In this way, we can implement the characters confronting Fox so many years later. For example, we could have Slippy being a talented inventor, Falco as a retired legendary pilot, Crystal as an ambassador for home planet, and so on and so forth. As well as the resurrection of Andros, threatening galactic peace, Fox will have to decide in this multi-planet world which part to choose. So depending on who you are working for, you can be part of the good guys or the bad guys, interchanging the morality of Fox and the player's experience, as well as the interactions between the characters. Alright, I'm going to say at this point, you have me hooked on what you're trying to go for here. Let's see the execution. Alright, let's take advantage of this aspect to make something interesting with the story. Andros is admittedly evil. There's no way we can redeem him, right? Well, kinda. Andros is the main antagonist of the Star Fox series, and is the archenemy of Fox McCloud. He is an evil mad scientist who is an expert in technology, telekinesis, and biotechnology management. Although his intentions were pure and beneficial to Corneria and the rest of the Lilat system, his lust for power drove him to the brink of madness. During one of his bioweapons experiments, Andros caused a devastating explosion that caused heavy damage to the city of Corneria, and the general made the decision to banish him to Venom, assuming he would not survive on that hostile planet. So we can see that Andros was not a good person, but he wasn't completely evil as he's portrayed in every game. Of course, experimentation on living beings is a very bad thing to do. The reason, however, was not always to being the benefits of Corneria. That's mirrored in General Pepper, where he's always portrayed as a goody two-shoes. He also has done questionable things for the benefits of Corneria. One example being the immediate banish to let Andros die on an isolated planet. Not prison, but immediate death sentence. So that's why the conflict between Andros and Pepper exists. While being an important and moving piece of the story, it wouldn't be the central focus. You would be able to choose a side. While yes, this would change which side of the war would win, probably changing the ending and what happens in the future. That wouldn't change drastically change the main story we are trying to portray here. And only as a flavor thing, maybe they could tell in some kind of way how every nation handles the governing in Corneria. Kind of the Splatoon Chaos versus Order, but Andros versus Pepper. So, we tackled the first aspect of Fox's personality as well as a broader understanding of the story of the game, but we need to polish this idea. First and foremost, the missions we will need to go physically to the place of the missions, having to travel between the planets so we could do the mission, and when we get there, the mission will start. Which could work just as a level from the classic games, possibly going from point A to point B, or defeating the enemy, maybe even keeping someone or something alive at the end. And if you succeed, you would be rewarded with what was accorded: money, equipment, weapons, vehicles, etc. As well as receiving a rank of some sort. With this in mind, you can revisit this mission, not getting the same amount of reward, but getting a better or worse rank. Everything for the completionist. But which kind of reward could possibly be obtained? Well, let's explore more about the gameplay. As I think I mentioned previously, this game could be an opportunity to apply aspects for all of the franchise. Thus, we're going to apply on-ship and on-foot aspects of the gameplay, looking to similar series on the big end like Kid Icarus Uprising, where they mix the on-rail shooters with the on-foot battle in a dynamic and elegant way that I think could work for Star Fox if we were to make it. So, we have air battles and land battles, being able to fight with ships as well as with your own talent. How could we make this more interesting? How about we talked about the kinds of ships and weapons we should be able to use? We have a better idea. Of course, we got the R-Wing, classic and old reliable. Not only being the base that all the other ships are worked off of, but also being the primary way of travel between your base and the missions where you're going. This is the most average ship as there is, being balanced in every way. This will be your first equal vehicle and the easiest to control, as well as having the most amount to upgrade and cause. What? And make cosmetics. I don't know what the actual verb is for cosmetic. Whatever. Landmaster, arguably the second most customized. That's the word I was looking for. Arguably the second most popular vehicle in the franchise, the Landmaster is here to provide the raw power and slow movements, being the big hitter of the bunch. No Fox's Sky, yes. Great title. The Landmaster will be able to fly as it does in Star Fox Zero, but is the slowest in the air, only having a better aim and shooting range. Even being capable of destroying natural terrain to find some secrets or enemies. We got the Chicken Walker. Will not be a variation of the R-Wing in this iteration, but rather a completely separate vehicle, being the fastest way to move on the ground to compensate its lack of air movement. The obvious use we can think of is a race mission where you can have to beat the bad guy, but could also work for escape or rescue missions. Maybe we can even make it walk on walls to implement a whole new way to move on the missions. That'd be neat. Got the Gyro Wing. The slow-moving Gyro Wing may not be the favorite of the fans, but I think it's important to bring it back so we can have a variety in the kind of missions we could get. Being useful in stealth missions because of its slow but controlled movement, as well as having the capability of controlling heavy objects. Gyro Wing was fine, it's just that Zero was trash. Like, the actual concept of the Gyro Wing is still cool, it just needs to be implemented in a better way. Got the Blue Marine, another slow-moving one, but unlike the Gyro Wing, the Marine was slow because of water levels. But why shouldn't we make it like that? How would make the Blue Marine an ace in the water, with levels where you have to stay on water or else you are virtually useless, having free movement under this element? These are some ships that have appeared in the game before, but how about some new ones? Ah, yes, joining the likes of the classic sci-fi weapons of like your basic X-Wing style thing. We got our tanks, our walkers, and the almighty wrecking. Oh my god, hold on a second. That's great! I have no idea what I'm doing! How do you drive this thing? Glorious. Used for missions where you'll need to destroy some structures. Why, obviously, it can't shoot. It has a very lethal demolition ball of death. And if we take into account one thing, what if it could fly? And you could be flying in circles as a biblically accurate angel of death. Oh, I'm just picturing like the classic Star Fox gameplay setup, but you're just constantly doing barrel rolls and the wrecking ball is just spinning to cover the entire screen. Oh, that's so fun. We'd have a motorcycle. Like the Walker, this vehicle will be more of a land-inspired one, the difference being that you could do tricks and jumps much more efficiently than the Walker. Maybe one mission could have an objective of doing the most flips in a certain amount of time. After all, Fox is one of the best pilots. Of course, the war train. Bringing back the on-rail in on-rail shooters, the train could have a predetermined path where you'll not be able to move, but you could be able to shoot at everything and everyone that crosses your way. Maybe even having to manage your ammunition to complete the mission successfully. Also, who says there can't be rails in the sky? Yeah, true. Yeah, a mecha. Maybe a little out there, but wouldn't it be cool to use a mecha? Like, imagine for a mission you have to be part of some contest where like a battle nexus or something where everyone is fighting with mech. Oh, dude! Some kind of mech gladiator ring where Wolf is the champion and Fox has to fight his way up to battle Wolf. That'd be so sick! You need to use zeros to win the competition, or maybe the bad mission, you need to destroy a city, and you can be the monster of the story. It could be awesome. I only wish that instead of Fox here, it was his dad. Just to lean into the fishing side of it. Just the stereotypical dad fishing. Fishing minigame. Do I need to say more? Maybe like a ghost of his dad sitting right next to him. Oh, that'd be sad. But I kind of love that. This is how he connects with his past father. He just relaxes fishing. Oh, dude, you're really selling me on this concept. With a mission structure, there are multiple ways to implement different vehicles and ships that we could continue for a long time. But there are also other aspects I would like to talk about. For example, beside having on-ships gameplay, I think this game should have on-foot missions as well. Not only because this is an aspect that this franchise has experimented with before, but because it can help out flesh out missions with the characters, being able to actually see Fox not only be a monitor, but in action. Thus, I think we should keep a balance between the shooter gameplay and a close combat fight so we can keep Fox as this cool dude that is not afraid to get his hands, or paws, they're hands. He has human hands. So we begin with the different weapons, starting with the blaster. Duh. The iconic neutral special is back from Smash and ready to kick some butt. Being the most basic of the weapons, the blaster is used for shooting from a distance in a reliable rhythm, as well as letting Fox get close to the enemy so he can finish them off with his born-out skill. Primarily kicks considering the metal-like legs boots that he's carrying around. We got the staff, the main weapons from Adventure is also back, being another pretty balanced weapon, implementing the abilities from the original like freezing waves, fire projectiles, ground quakes, and even temporary flight boost. As well as being a pretty good weapon, a weapon that's pretty good for close combat, being able to combo all these abilities to make the most of the staff. We got the sniper rifle, an obviously long-range weapon. The sniper could get you overrun pretty quickly, but if you can keep your distance... If you can't keep your distance, but if you can, then the sniper would be pretty effective. Even being able to aim with the sights, you can be as campy as you want to be. We got a machine gun. A two-handed weapon that is the fastest to shoot while being respectively weaker than the rest. It's also a little slow in close combat. Using this weapon to hit in a frantic manner, you make a lot of chip damage from medium distance. Yes! Yeah, posing Falco here with Fox's face. The biggest and the fattest and the slowest, the cannon would work as a way to rack up damage from afar, sacrificing your speed for raw power and big reach, making huge explosions to send opponents flying. As well as other weapons we can think of for it. Oh god, imagine some kind of new Darth Vader character for Fox. And it's actually his dad. You have a whole, no, Fox, I am your father. It's a beam sword, of course, not a lightsaber. Because, of course, this is the most dull weapon reference concerned Star Wars is one of, if not the biggest sci-fi franchise. We have no shooting ability, but be extremely good in close combat. We also have a light whip. Another close combat-centric weapon. This one will have more range and also would be more specialized in the proper movement of Fox, having to move in and out from the enemy. Gotta press... Oh, that Fox with a hammer sounds really cool. Another heavy-hitting weapon, but specializing this time in short range, only making shockwaves to hit from afar. You could even throw the hammer, leaving you pretty open. We also got the Rob switch, working more as a turret, but also being able to direct to attack at close range. This would be some sort of advanced version of Rob 64. Obviously, you have to remain consistent for the joke of the console. As well as having a multitude of different weapons that could also be implemented. I don't have the imagination. There is another aspect of the Star Fox games that is not spoken so often, but I think would help to keep these weapons and vehicles fresh. I present to you power-ups. You have smart bombs, the iconic smart bombs, everybody knows what those do. First aid kits and supply rings. Again, everybody knows what those do. Reflector shields work as a projectile barrier. Rocket boots being useful for on-foot missions. Works as a way to elevate your character in the air for longer jumps. You have fuel cells to mimic his side special in Smash Brothers. Acts as a pseudo-dodge, kind of like Samus's new phase shift thing from Dread. And scraps, various materials that you can use to improve and fix the different vehicles, for example, make them faster, more durable, easier to pilot, etc. All this sounds very good, but that makes me question, how can we make progress feasible? First thing I thought of was a certain amount of missions are required to advance the story, but that would be too shallow, in my opinion. I see it like this. If the platformers have different words with each one having a theme around what it is about, I would love for this game to have defined sections so we can work the story, the narrative, into the styles of the missions. And here comes the other defining factor of Fox, the death of his father. At this point, I want to point out that I'm not a psychiatrist, medic, psychologist, and know nothing that actually knows sufficiently about this topic. I'm just a dude who likes compelling stories and is just swinging around to have some brainstorming exercise. Even then, I'd like to apologize in case you find it unrespectful or in bad taste. I wouldn't worry about that at all. I wouldn't worry about it now that you've given the warning in case somebody might be bothered by it. So long as you do that, I think it's more healthy to have a potentially inflammatory discussion rather than just keeping thoughts to yourself. Because you can't grow with having those discussions. Yeah. So, things might get heavy from here. Letting everybody know. From a psychological point of view, the death of a parent and a teenager, Fox having most likely been 17 years old when this happens, is an incredibly traumatic and life-changing event. I'm going to... I just realized I'm reading this over the hyper-aggressive Cornelius. Let's skip to a more calming... There we go, yeah. While it is true that all deaths are experienced as unjust, sudden, traumatic deaths, for which by definition one cannot be prepared for, are obviously even more so. And we take into consideration that 17 years old is a very complicated age, in which most of the people are still figuring out the world and themselves, it turns increasingly problematic, having this line of support suddenly not present to you in any form, in the case of Fox. It looks like from the outside he took it relatively fine, only abandoning the army so he could take care of his father's business and honoring his legacy. But is that really all that is behind that move? According to a study, it is mentioned that adolescents, when living these kinds of experiments, usually take patch solutions or dysfunctional solutions. As has been observed in clinical practice, the young person tends to adopt one or several of the following strategies. They either don't talk about the death of their parents. This is a mechanism that is a consequence of the denial phase that usually occurs after the initial stupor and serves to protect the young person from pain. After the death of the parent, the teenager deletes the word mom and dad from his vocabulary due to the pain it causes them. The mechanism can last for years, months, years, or decades if a healthy mourning process is not set in motion. Talking excessively about the parents and the reason why they died. In this dysfunctional way, the teenager initially finds relief from his anger and pain, but ends up aggravating and worsening it. It's like continually scratching over an open wound that is thus prevented from healing. This is going to be a very bizarre segment for anybody that's jumping into this this stream starting right now. Escape from reality by intensifying social life, with friends trying to keep busy and entertained and thus not think. This form of avoidance can be accompanied by drugs, alcohol, risky sexual or life-threatening behaviors. The pain is so great they try to cancel it out through social life and attributing excessive importance to the group of friends. Adopting the role of the victim. The young person attributes a condition of inferiority that does not allow him to advance to the growth phases. The young man has the sensation of being lame. It is important to highlight that this victimization is not only always externalized, can often experience only internally. From this perspective, we can consider that Fox suffered or is suffering at least two of the solutions. This being the almost null... conversation, the reference of his father, making him uncomfortable when it's brought to the table, as well as the escape from reality. Maybe not intentionally, but being reflected in the immediate taking control of Team Star Fox. So I think it is possible to say that Fox is suffering from the loss of his dad to this day, if we consider the lack of a maternal figure, or mention of her, as well as the constant comparison thanks to peppy hair, being intentional or... Oh, taking into some psychological trauma of, like, Fox kind of being bothered by Peppy constantly comparing him to his father, keeping that wound fresh. That's fascinating. Oh, God. Oh, I'm loving this. I know Nintendo never gets this deep with their stories, but, like, they could. And they could do so much with that. Makes for a very dangerous space for the young adult that is Fox, always having to live up to expectations as well as not being able to show weakness to his team. Giorgio Nardone mentions, you can only leave a battlefield when you are able to stay on it. If you abandon yourself when you're not able to stay in it, it is a flight. And I think this is what Fox is doing constantly. Getting involved in different conflicts and relationships only to try to forget or deny this wound that he hasn't been able to cure, that hasn't been able to close. This is an aspect that I don't think is primarily necessary for a game with these characteristics, but I think it could help to flesh out not only a very real story in a fictional game, but also flesh out the significance of the gameplay or, well, the battles. Because in real life, we are not constantly defeating enemies, quite the contrary. We need to rely on others in order to progress in our life. If we transform everyone that is around us to enemies, we will inevitably end up alone and depressed. And that is a problem I wish this game could fix from a narrative standpoint, at least. Because yes, in this game, there are constant fights, there are enemies, and you literally can decline all the missions and close to everyone around you. But that would end up making a very shallow and boring game, ruining the experience as well as metaphorically, ruining Fox's life while keeping him alone and in distress. So that kind of argument, I would like to see this kind of take on Fox as a character, as well as the story take. If anyone dislikes this mindset, it's completely fine, and honestly, I think the game is perfectly functional without this element. It's just, for me at least, a way to mix the gameplay with the story, utilizing the video game format not only as entertainment, but as an art. So yes, I mentioned before that I would love to see this kind of progress being laid down in some sort of narrative sense, in which we could divide them to make a more coherent game. This is where it comes to the differentiator, the feasibility of the progress. Here's where I present the phases of grief. In popular culture, we have 5 principal phases that every person goes through, one way or another, being denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. This was a way to simplify the study of grief for those that study the topic, making it more accessible and easy for comprehension. And I think there are ways to sort of divide the different phases of the game, making use of each of these phases to classify and implement different kinds of missions. Also, I'd love to have each stage having a sort of main sidekick, where one character will have the most dialogue with Fox and the most amount of missions to do. For example, are we gonna make each of the main pilots the 5 stages of grief? Yo, we totally are! Hell yes! Let's get serious! Denial is a very common reaction that occurs immediately after a loss. It is not uncommon when experiencing sudden loss to experience a sense of unreality or disbelief that may be accompanied by a freezing of emotions. This stage will be our beginning of the game, not mentioning anything about the grief or what happened to Star Fox, or how we are feeling as protagonists, only making vague comments here and there. Fox didn't lose his whole team, everything's still fine, he's still doing great. The mission would primarily be about the fundamentals, introducing the different styles of gameplay that we can have in the rest of the adventure. The main sidekick would be Slippy, being the so-called best friend of Fox and a source of optimism all throughout, as well as being an accidental tutorial character. I imagine a scene where Slippy accidentally brings the topic to the table, sending Fox in a loop and lashing out towards him. Often, the first contact with emotions after denial can be in the form of anger. Feelings of frustration and helplessness are activated that can end up attributing the responsibility of an immediate loss to a third party. In extreme cases, people cannot grieve because they get caught up in a continuous claim that prevents them from properly saying goodbye to the loved object. Oh, Xenon Lopo, you came in at the best possible time. This time, the mission will be more aggressive, normally consisting on taking care of a villain hands-on. The main sidekick here would be Falco, whose cocky personality will clash with the others, sometimes sounding more antagonistic to Fox than his friend. I imagine a scene where Falco makes a comment on the topic, provoking the Volpine to punch Falco in the face and throwing him out of his presence. Gosh, I would love to see, like... Oh god, can you imagine, like, jaded Falco watching the team that James McCloud fell apart and, like, having that fight between him and Fox, being like, yeah, you weren't good enough. You couldn't follow in your father's footsteps, and just the entire, what's the word I'm looking for? Collapse. Afterwards, gosh. I'm kind of feeling almost StarCraft 2 Jim Raynor, if, you know, that story was handled well. In the bargaining phase, you begin to come into contact with the reality of the loss, while you begin to explore what things to do to reverse the situation. For example, when someone is diagnosed with a terminal illness and begins to explore treatment options despite having been informed that there is no possible cure, or who believes that they will be able to recover a relationship that is already definitively broken if they begin to behave differently. These kind of missions would be more focused on trying to avoid direct confrontation. Usually you have to cut out power or infiltrate into an enemy base. The main psychic here would be Crystal, which after years of not contacting with Fox, she would cause a sentiment that the world is changing, wishing to go back in time to fix everything. I imagine Fox asking for explanations to Crystal, asking what he did wrong, and Crystal just goes away. As the grieving process progresses and the reality of the loss is accepted, contact with what absence implies emotionally beginning. It implies emotional beginning, which manifests itself in different ways. Grief, nostalgia, a tendency to social isolation, and loss of interest for the everyday. Although this phrase is called depression, it would be more correct to call it sorrow or sadness, thus losing the connotation to something that is pathological. Somehow, only grieving the loss can start the path to continue living despite it. The missions will have some kind of eerie victory, not having very fun missions, but more tedious, slow, stressful. Here, the sidekick will be Wolf. Not only because it is an eerie wolf, but because what he represented. You see Wolf in the games always joke about James McCloud's death, making it appear that he had some history with him. But Wolf has always shown to have respect for the McCloud family, even helping Fox in the asteroid invasion. Which makes me doubt the fact that Wolf would trick James McCloud to a trap instead of taking care in a fair battle between the two. Here, Fox will be confronted with the truth of his father's death, breaking the facade of the Vulpine and falling into tears in front of the canine. I would love some kind of... grow Wolf's character to be more of a Knuckles to Fox's Sonic, you know? Like, there's a heavy rivalry there, but especially with this idea of Fox becoming more of a gray character. Like, I'd love some kind of bar scene where he's just shooting the shit with Wolf. Just reminiscing on fights between the two of them. That'd be so sick. And finally, acceptance. It supposes the arrival of a state of calm associated with the understanding, not only rational, but also emotional, that death and other losses are inherent phenomena of life. The metaphor of a wound that is just healed could be applied, which does not imply stopping remembering, but being able to continue living with it. At the end of the game, Fox will finally confront Andros or the Armada, depending on the decision he made in the game. Here, the main psychic will be Peppy Hare, representing the reunion with what James McCloud symbolizes, in turn with what Fox really is, his own person, ending in the last battle and showing Fox looking at the distance. Depending on which missions you did, either this is a hopeful scene with all of his friends, or on the contrary, looking at the void of the galaxy alone. I would love it if it was a little more complicated than that. Like, imagine it was revealed that General Pepper knew that James McCloud would die in the trap, but didn't tell him because he still needed to complete the mission. Like, make it less of a black and white decision for Fox. Maybe add with that a little bit more humanizing of Andros. I kind of dive into the fact that he was initially just trying to help people. Like, this could be it. Bro, you are making me more invested in the Star Fox characters and universe than I ever have been. To end each chapter, Fox will have a special extended mission prompted by the correspondent sidekick, where he would not have any kind of reward more than the progress of the story. If Fox makes more missions from the good guys and the bad guys, in the last battle he will team up with Corneria and the Star Fox team. If the contrary happens, Fox will team up with Andros and the Star Wolf team. This special mission won't count as either good or bad, only functioning as a way to explore Fox's inner feelings, but being good or bad will have its consequences. Like, for example, if you had a good relationship with your allies and friends, thus picking mostly the good guy missions, this will make Fox more sociable and more open to actually changing for the good and moving on. But if you had more bad relationships with them, tossing them aside and choosing to go for the bad guy missions, Fox will gradually close up to his friends, damaging others and himself. A big part of Star Fox has been the memorable characters, so I figured that kind of like Fire Emblem, the social aspect should have at least a minor role in this. And I think that wrapping it up with a mission system would help to not make it feel so disconnected, but more of another way to reward the player. So that was a little intense. How about we talk about some ideas for different missions? Yes, but I absolutely adored that. That was fantastic. Go from point A to point B, the de facto Star Fox gameplay. You will go from point A to point B. Having a limited option of movement and being able to destroy waves of enemies, being able to be on both the sides of Andros and Corneria. The mission ends when you get to your objective. These missions could be on the air, on land, or even underwater. killing a single target, kind of like Uprising boss battles. An enemy could be either bigger than you or even the same exact size, utilizing an on-foot battle, or you can even do it in vehicles. For example, a mecha. You'd have defeating lots of people. Sort of a compromise for Star Fox warriors. Just defeat X amount of targets in the map. On rails, but really on rails. Utilizing the train with its predisposed path, you should worry about eliminating the enemies and enemies that you find in the way, kind of like Splatoon missions. You have espionage missions, needing to infiltrate in some facility on foot or even in vehicles like the Walker. But the catch is if they spot you with security systems, they would send waves after waves of enemies, practically until you are dead. Destroying something specific, because duh, we have a flying wrecking ball, we have to use it. We'd have races, we'd have, delivery missions. Just using the gyro wing to bring things around. Recollection of resources, and fishing minigames, because of course we need to have fishing minigames. In conclusion, this could be a very different game from the franchise. More than I expected. I was hoping to think of something that could bring all of the franchises together, and ended up doing another of so many experiences that the franchise has suffered with. It's ironic in the beginning I criticized the inconsistency of the franchise, and I ended up doing the exact same thing. I suppose this is why it hasn't come back. If I want to keep the magic from the original games, it would be of such an incredible study of the evolution of gaming and the industry that at the end of the day, it is better to keep on trying new things to see what sticks. Star Fox has suffered from this, and a lot of other franchises as well. But if there is something salvageable about this concept, idea, thingy, or at least makes you think and imagine, I suppose that makes this a victory. And with that, I must say, thank you so very much to read this whole mess of a script. I kind of played very little Star Fox in my life, but the universe as well as the ideas put into this weird franchise has always stuck with me for some reason. I hope that doesn't make me even if it does, that's not bad. Thanks also to the Duke of Dorks for making this space for brainstorming, imagining, and share with others the things that normally one can't share. This time, I tried to write this idea in English from the beginning. As been since school, I didn't write this many words in English, so I hope you all can understand. And if you don't, again, I'm terrible. No worries at all. Don't ever feel any shame about that. You have communicated your idea concisely and brilliantly, and that is what matters at the end of the day. Speaking of sorry, I also want to apologize for making use of a topic like grief so shallowly. Oh, don't worry about that at all. If anything, making those kind of topics kind of in more shallow, approachable means, like I'd compare Avatar: The Last Airbender. Making them more approachable can actually be a super good tool to help people actually get over those problems. On a lighter note, I do not recommend searching in Google Fox McCloud for too long. I found some beautiful and impressive art as well as a lot more concerning. Also, a lot of people ship Fox with Wolf now? And now I can't unsee that Wolf's palette color is literally the bisexual flag. It's... Yeah, you know what? Yeah, no, you're not wrong there. Thank you so very much, and love from Chile. Que le vaya bonito. P.S. It's called Supernova because a dying star sounds cool, as well as a parallelism of Fox being at his absolute worst. That was absolutely fantastic. I have never cared about Star Fox's lore or universe, really anything. It's always kind of been, not to be mean, but more of an arcade game to me, rather than an actual, like, big-budget Nintendo franchise. This, though, holy shit, this would be phenomenal. Like, taking aside the really deep and touching exploration of Fox dealing with grief, which is a hefty thing to set aside, I love the idea of a more open-ended Star Fox experience. You're just kind of going through planets, kind of doing things at your own pace. Create more of a mercenary, like a Star Wars smuggler kind of, what the Ubisoft Star Wars game is trying to do, but in like an interesting way that doesn't seem just copied pasted from every Ubisoft thing they've ever done. But yeah, I'm so into this. I am so into this. It was a long one, but I was riveted the entire way through. Just the idea especially of using Wolf as a way, it's like that third party who completely understands what Fox is going through because, you know, he's the one that killed his dad. I think, right? Might be wrong. No, it was a Pigma? I don't know Star Fox lore. But regardless, having that weird bonding experience between the two where they've been through so much and just having that grounded kind of reality, that'd be so good. Yeah, I don't have much more to say. Like, I could continue, like, building off of this. Like, there are so many story things you could explore with something like this. And I would enjoy all of them. Well done, Emilio. I always love reading your concepts. Okay. We have 2 more for the day. This one, a very fascinating idea that we've never had anything like. This person wants me to, try to, play music, like, have more of a, play certain music at certain times. I'll try my best, but that's a tall order. I'll try. So, let's begin. I'm gonna read this first before sharing the link and changing the overlay. 6 years after the release of the Nintendo Switch, and about 4 years since Nintendo stopped officially supporting the 3DS, a question has popped in my mind. What should Nintendo's next major system be? It's a surprisingly difficult question to answer, though I invite you all to give your input in the chat. As it stands, the Switch is still doing very well, though a Pro model could offer up some upgrades or quality of life improvements. A direct successor doesn't feel necessary at the moment, and it's not clear how the Switch's home/handheld hybrid design would be viewed moving forward. How does one really attempt to make another standalone system when the current one seems so future-proof? To me, it feels like the next step should involve some sort of interesting gimmick. Think of the Nintendo DS, which granted players the ability to tap and draw on the bottom screen, or the Wii, that allowed players to swing or tilt their controller. Both of these unique designs allowed Nintendo to devise games that couldn't be replicated on their other consoles at the time. I think whatever comes next should do something similar, an attempt to make an experience that the Switch hasn't gotten to work. And I think I know what kind of experience Nintendo might want to pursue. We open on a living room, in the midst of a party, late at night. The music is loud and the people are louder. Everyone's having a good time, enjoying some chips and dip and talking to each other. Everyone, except for one person, who's grown a bit uncomfortable from the overstimulation. Some of the partygoers praise this person, apparently the host for the great party, but after some time, the host decides to step out for a moment. They head to their bedroom, where it's much more quiet and pretty dark save for a lamp in the corner and a glowing lava lamp on the desk. The host starts moving some of the furniture around, creating a clearing in the center of the room. When they're done, they open a box that's been sitting on their bed and pull out a small, wireless handheld controllers reminiscent of a Joy-Con. They step into the center of their room, take a deep breath, and slide something over their eyes. The Virtual Boy Advance. Nintendo tackling virtual reality technology should be a no-brainer at this point. They've toyed with the idea a little bit with a Nintendo Labo headset, but not much came from that little cardboard thing. And nothing has happened since with Nintendo and VR. I think that, when the time comes for the big end to make a brand new system, it ought to be VR. Hence, the Virtual Boy returns. Not quite the same as when it left. With a lighter design, the oft-requested head straps, and no pesky wires to get in the way, the Virtual Boy Advance serves to get right everything the original model got wrong. It's a headset that fits right in among the other VR heads. Also just realized I did not share the link. And this is made by Retrobeetle. I should have said that first. Hence, the Virtual Boy returns, but not quite the same as it left, with lighter design, the oft-requested head straps, and no pesky wires to get in the way. I think I just read that. As for the controllers, they don't need to do anything special. See above for a rough draft. Right there. Slap a set of face buttons on each, and you got a pair of controllers that will allow players to engage fully with the games they play. More on that later. For accessibility's sake, we'll also say that players can remap any of the buttons as they please. Don't want anyone getting confused when they can't see the buttons, do we? Like with all VR sets, the Virtual Boy Advance will have a home menu, which takes the form of a virtual space players that can get their bearings in. This is the virtual hub. By default, it will look something like the image above. A blank space with a red grid on the floor, nothing special. However, players will have the ability to place different accessories around their hub to really make it their own. Such accessories can be taken from various Nintendo games and properties. You could have something as small as a Yoshi egg or a blue Mario Party space, or something as large as Samus's gunship or Hyrule Castle. All able to be placed wherever your heart desires. Of course, I wouldn't expect everyone to be content with just red and black voids as their background forever, so players would be able to unlock various Nintendo-themed skins on their virtual hub. There could be a Super Nintendo World theme, a Peach's Castle theme, a DK Island, DK's House theme, a Planet Popstar theme, Sheikah Tower, Zonai Sky Island, Brinstar Green Soil. Basically any location from any Nintendo game. Pick your favorite and enjoy the scenery before you jump into everything the Virtual Boy has to offer. Ideally, the Virtual Boy Advance would be fully portable, like the MetaQuest 2. Before it, the headset would come with a small charging cradle, but players would be able to charge the headset by plugging it into any USB cord included that can connect to a computer, wall outlet, or even Nintendo Switch. In any case, no TV or PC is needed to enjoy what the Virtual Boy Advance has to offer, and it can be used virtually anywhere. Some titles would require room enough to extend one's arms, but there would still be plenty that could be played with only a small amount of space. Of course, if players want their friends to be able to watch, the Virtual Boy Advance will come with two adapters, an HDMI adapter and a USB adapter. The former is plugged directly into a TV, while the latter is plugged into a computer. Either will pick up the image from the headset and allow it to be displayed. But the USB adapter has an additional feature, special Nintendo Switch connectivity. If it's plugged into a system in the Nintendo Switch family of systems, then the player wearing the headset will be able to display games from that system in their headsets. They'll be able to resize the screen to their comfort level and move it as close or as far away as they need to. Games from the Switch may be controlled either by the Joy-Con or by VBA controllers. That's an interesting way to create cross-compatibility. Oh, that is one of the most Nintendo ideas I've ever heard for trying to make a new system. Well, you can't play the games on the system, but if you have the system, you can play the system on the new system. Additionally, connecting the two will make brand new games that can be played with both simultaneously. Speaking of which, games. Of course, I had to think up some games to go along with this new system. I want the leap to VR to open up possibilities that prior consoles have been too restrictive to allow, and to explore avenues that prior consoles had only briefly attempted. What follows is a list of ideas I had that I think could be playing with the Virtual Boy Advance a worthwhile experience, or at least be a fun time. Super Mario Odyssey, Kingdom Tour. No VR headset would be complete without a tech demo environmental test. Kingdom Tour takes players to various locations from the Super Mario Odyssey game, now fully rendered in VR. Take your time and enjoy the many sights that each kingdom has to offer. When you're ready, you can advance to the next scene with the press of a button. Nothing much to say. Hey, just a fun way to introduce players to VR and or give Mario fans a new perspective on their favorite locales. Highlights include the Fossil Falls, T-Rex breaking through a stone wall, the transition from the bottom of Bowser's Kingdom to the top of the tower, and of course Mayor Pauling putting on a show for the citizens of New Donk City. One of my favorites is the Fallen Kingdom, where the dragon seems to fly awfully close. Virtual Boy Sports. You haven't thought swinging a tennis racket or rolling a bowling ball felt realistic on the Wii. You haven't seen anything yet. Virtual Boy Sports follows in the footsteps of Wii Sports Resort, and Nintendo Switch Sports, placing players right in the action to experience one of several classic sports titles. More modes will be added over time for free, a pleasant title that serves as a great pack-in for early bundles. I'm just picturing two people at a tennis court that aren't actually playing tennis. They've just got these headsets on and you're just swinging their Joy-Cons wildly trying to play tennis with each other virtually. We could have the Virtual Boy Collection. We fixed the various problems with the Virtual Boy itself. Now let's take a look at the original games. Virtual Boy Collection remasters each of the original Virtual Boy titles for fans wanting to recreate Nintendo's first foray into VR technology. Naturally, every game has been given a fresh coat of paint, with full color filters applied by default, although if one desires, the color path can be swapped out for grayscale or the red retro style. Try the unique gameplay of Mario Clash, wrap your head around the puzzling 3D Tetris, or become a bowling master in Nestor's Funky Bowling, all renewed for the modern age. We'd have Mario Kart Workshop. Mario Kart Live Home Circuit let you piece together a racetrack on your own living space. Now it's time to take complete control of your driver's path forward. Mario Kart Workshop allows players to freely draw a track upon which to race, then enhance that track with dash panels, trick ramps, piranha plants, and more. So long as you complete a lap, you're good to go and you can upload it to a database to stand alongside others' creations. For racing, players have a few options. Being in VR means the option for a bird's eye view of the whole track. Alternatively, there's a simple behind the driver view, either immersive or on a resizable screen, and a behind the wheel view. For those that can't stomach it, appropriate warnings are placed beforehand. There are several pre-made cups to choose from, or players can race on custom tracks made by themselves or other designers, and, if split screen is of interest to their friend group, they can plug in either of the adapters and enable the use of any Bluetooth controllers for multiplayer. Kirby coming at ya. Make no mistake, this Kirby game is much more than you think. You'll be brought right into the action of every stage, but in a passive role. You'll be controlling Kirby to run, jump, and fly around in a world that fills your whole perception. Remember to turn around and look all over for secrets, as there's much more to see in each area and plenty to challenge your understanding of what platforming looks like. Oh, shit! Oh! Okay, I'll admit I haven't been quite sold on this yet, but a Captain Toad VR game? Yo, that's so perfect! That would be so cool! Captain Toad is back and he's smaller than ever. Follow the brave leader of the Toad Brigade as he attempts to explore the many dioramas of Sarasaland's landscapes. You'll need to modify the landscape to get Captain Toad to the glittering treasure in each stage. Walk around the dioramas to get... Oh, dude, that's just straight up like Star Trek holographic bullshit. That sounds like so much fun. Hey, hands on which platforms and obstacles to ensure a safe safari. Can you guide Toad to the magic artifact that would return him and his crew to normal size? Gosh, literally being able to reach your hand out, grab a platform, and raise it up so Captain Toad can walk across it. Just, oh, that really reaches for my heartstrings right there. That would be adorable and just so much fun. Ever want to experience some of Nintendo's finest moments up close and personal? Here's your chance. Nintendo Land Arcade is a wonderful amusement park full of sub-games and mini-games that replicate the feel and atmosphere of iconic Nintendo games. Swing your sword at bokoblins and moblins in the highly inspiring game, play a set of virtual bongos to the rhythm in the DK Jam game, and try for a high score without getting caught in the WarioWare Secret Gamer game. If you want to take a short break, you can visit the Claw Tower and spend coins gained and earned in games for a chance to collect additional games and accessories that can be placed around your virtual hub. Ooh, the ability. That would be the best achievement system ever. Yo, think about that for a second. Being able to play through virtual reality games, and as you beat the games, you actually get more objects that you can use to customize your actual home menu. That would be amazing. Oh, you struck gold with that idea right there, Retrobeetle. Like, there's a lot of fun things here as well, but that's gold. We got Virtual Boy Fit. When your whole body is the controller, it's easier than ever to get some exercise. Participate in fast-paced minigames that are sure to get your heart pumping, like Super Hoop, Ski Jump, or Rhythm Boxing. Follow the lead of a trained professional as you go through yoga and strength training drills like the tree, planking, or push-ups. Evaluate your fit age with the daily fitness tests, then set goals to help you reach your ideal age. Sorry, I'm just... We had the people in the tennis court beforehand. Now I'm just picturing somebody in just the corner of a gym, just with this Virtual Boy Advance over their head, doing planks and push-ups. Oh, this is a fun idea. No need for a balance board this time. Your handheld controllers and outward-facing cameras will keep track of your movements to better coach you on how to improve. I mean, we can still sell a balance board. It's just I don't feel like it should have to be mandatory. Yes! The glorious child returns! Nearly 40 years later, Rob is back in a brand new cooperative experience. With the headset on, you gain access to buttons and switches that will change the environment on the TV. With it off, you control Rob and his allies as they make their way through an ever-changing landscape. Work together with friends to solve each puzzling level asymmetrically, or face the single-player challenge and manage both sides of the stage at once. Do you have what it takes to help Rob and prevent him from meeting an electrifying end? Robotic operating buddies, get it on your Nintendo NES system. Your parents will help you hook it up. We have Mario Party Mega Masters. Remember when Mario Party tried to create an asymmetrical multiplayer mode? Here's a better look at what it might have been. With one player behind the headset, controlling Mega Mushroom imbued characters of their choice, and everyone else watching the TV, Mega Masters puts an interesting spin on the Mario Party formula by giving the big character a different set of rules and strategies to apply. In mini-games, the odd one out will have to manually dodge, throw, jump, and more to compete with their controller-wielding opponents. Think you have what it takes? Oh my god! That idea... Just imagine the kind of mini-games where you got the four people playing on the screen with classic stuff, but then you just have Luigi following the VR movements of the VR player that's just swatting at them. That'd be amazing. Additionally, for players who don't prefer asymmetrical multiplayer, a more standard split-screen mode is available, as well as online multiplayer modes that utilize multiple headsets. I think that right there is the biggest issue with this. Like, a VR headset makes couch co-op inherently difficult, but by having this kind of inter-functionality with the Switch, I think you could still get away with that. When playing alone, CPU players may also take on the role of a VR-controlled character in either standard or Mega mode. Players other than Player 1 may use any Bluetooth controller to join in the fun, use a Virtual Boy Advance controller, pair of controllers, or connect to a Nintendo Switch to use Joy-Cons, as seen below. For players with both a Virtual Boy Advance and a Nintendo Switch, both functionality is available. Any Nintendo Switch games may be broadcast to the headset to be played on a virtually adjustable screen. Any games which utilize the Labo VR kit may be experienced in their intended view. Certain games may be controlled with Joy-Con, particularly those with asymmetrical multiplayer. While on the subject of asymmetrical multiplayer, linking a Virtual Boy Advance and Nintendo Switch will immediately unlock access to certain games which are centered around linking the two. Nothing fancy, I just don't want to lock these games behind having two expensive consoles and an extra $20 on top of that. And basically anything else. Of course, there are some games that just wouldn't feel right to exclude from a VR game library. Beat Saber, Job Simulator, Richie's Plank Experience, and Five Nights at Freddy Help Wanted, to name a few. They all have to appear on the new eShop equivalent. Conclusion! The Virtual Boy Advance may not be the best idea for Nintendo's next console, but it's one that I'd love to see introduced. It could serve as redemption for Nintendo's most infamous system, the Virtual Boy's early VR tech, while also toying around with the concept used by another, the Wii U's asymmetrical multiplayer. Each game crafted for the VBA could bring fresh and new mechanics to beloved Nintendo series. Its unique design could allow it to stand alongside the Switch rather than attempting to replace or upgrade it, and that even pace could open the way for special interaction between the two. Though it may be a pipe dream, I know Nintendo has a habit of pulling great things out of pipes. I won't hold my breath, but I'll keep my fingers crossed in case something like this happens. This is true. This is indeed true. Before I wrap this up, I do want to get your guys' opinions on what sort of concept I should work on next. I know I probably won't get in next time, but still nice to have a plan for the future. Let me know in the chat of which of these you'd be most interested in. Tired of the likes of Mario and Donkey Kong having the same old moveset in every Smash game? Find out what could be done to spruce up the roster with the Smash upgrade, Choose Your Fighter. A new challenger appears. Back from the depths of obscurity, get ready to play it loud in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Power Play. Is that Guitar Hero? A new challenger appears. Pick a card and pray because the bell tolls in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Luck of the Draw. Ooh. I choose Power Play, because if that is actually Guitar Hero, that sounds absolutely hilarious. Thank you for reading. Wow! Okay, I was just kind of looking at this for the novelty of it all when it first started, because I'm like, oh yeah, sure, Virtual Boy come back, like, it's an idea, there's still potential there. But from, like, Captain Toad onward, just absolutely sold on it. The idea behind, like, having this virtual hub that you can unlock more things to use in it by playing games, that's the best idea for an achievement system that has ever existed. Return of Rob... Mario Party with VR in that kind of way would be so funny. Maybe a little... It might get old fast, but the initial concept would be absolutely hilarious. I don't know about Nintendo Retrobeetle, but you've definitely sold me on this idea. Well done. That was a lot of fun. Alright. We got one more for the day. Like I said at the beginning, I tried for this episode to intentionally take non-Smash Brothers concepts, but there weren't enough to actually fill out a whole slot, so I decided to take Gubsy's and one more due to their unique style of presentations, and just because I feel like this would be a very fun way of ending out the year, because, like, these are just always so fun to look over. It's technically a third submission, which means it's going to be a very long time before you'll be able to get into it again. But you've been asking for so long, I will finally cave. Rediscovering Diddy and Dixie Kong, the lost video game heroes. So to start off, I want to explain my reasoning for this concept. Oh, the year as in we've been doing Peasant's perspective for the year. I'm not confused that it's suddenly December of Xeon. So to start off, I want to explain my reasoning for this concept and my connection with this character. Firstly, my problem with Diddy in Smash is the same as with Donkey Kong and the rest of the Mario cast. He's not allowed to be a fun character like in his actual games. But Diddy's case is a bit different than DK's, where not only is Diddy's presentation not fitting, his moveset isn't even fitting for the character as well. But I don't think that way about Diddy back then, because I didn't care about him at all back then. Similar to Duke before Pierre showed him the light, I didn't really think that much of Diddy. Despite loving the Donkey Kong series, Diddy was the thing in the series I cared the least about. To me, Diddy was just some random character in the Mario spin-offs that followed Donkey Kong on his adventures. And at most a weird character, and annoying character in Smash Bros. Until I saw the Subspace Emissary, where he had actual personality, and I played DKC 2, Diddy Kong Racing, and DK64, where he was saving his best friend from pirates with his girlfriend and helped stop Wizpig and K. Rool, and I saw how charming, unique, and fun Diddy was. Thanks to those games and Duke of Dork's video about updating the DK crew, I had new appreciation for Diddy since then. So, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and show the team behind a future Smash Bros. Game could update Diddy to be more unique and in character, by giving some presentation and moveset changes that better show who Diddy really is. Starting with presentation. Starting with the most obvious choices. Dixie Kong rocks the brawl. I thought that was an eye patch for a second, but no, she's just winking. God, I love this claymation so much. I want Dixie Kong not as an Echo Fighter, but as a 2-in-1 character with Diddy Kong similar to the Pokemon Trainer. Though while Dixie would have some moves similar to Diddy, Dixie would be a mostly original character, an all-rounder and Footsie's character to be exact, that acts as an easier alternative to Diddy, as well as being a more easygoing and chill character than Diddy. Now you might be asking, wait, what? Why do you want Dixie as a tag team character with Diddy? Because, like Smasher said in his Dixie concept, regardless of her lack of major appearances, she's often seen as the third main member of the DK crew, and I think she deserves a shot in Smash, especially in more recent years. And they're right about her deserving a shot. But I think, and Diddy being a dual character would be the easiest way to go with her and Diddy personally. Think about it, one very important mechanic in Donkey Kong Country is the swapping mechanic. And Rare decided on that mechanic so the player didn't feel alone. And I think that should be one of the core parts of Diddy and Dixie's design. Because Diddy and Dixie didn't save the day on their own, they had someone to help them when things got tough, and together there was nothing these two couldn't do. That's what I want to capture with Diddy and Dixie together. I'll also throw in there that if you want to explore a character's personality, having another character for them to constantly bounce off of is the easiest way to do that. Now that I've established my goals for this concept, it's time to go over the changes I thought of for Diddy and Dixie Kong. Just like with DK, my main problem with Diddy's presentation is that he looks and sounds too realistic. So just like with DK, I made a clay model to show how he could look in Super Smash Bros. Just like with DK, I took inspiration from Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, changed his mouth a bit, and made Diddy a lot more expressive. You also might notice that Diddy looks a lot more cocky in this picture, and that is actually intentional. I want the team behind a future Smash Bros. Game to show more of Diddy's character in future Smash Bros., along with other characters in Super Smash Bros., with small details that say more about Diddy's character. I want Diddy's walk to look like his walk from Returns and Tropical Freeze, just like with Diddy, and for Diddy's new walk and current run to have Diddy wear a cocky smile on his face. For Dixie, however, I want her ground jump, walk, and run to look like how they do in Donkey Kong Country 2, to help make her more distinct from Diddy, as well as giving her a new idle stance to make her more distinct, again, from Diddy. Got idle, walk, run. I like the juxtaposition of Diddy kind of being constantly like 3-point landing, whereas Dixie's just casually walking forward. She doesn't have anything to prove. Look at that ponytail. She's already so cool. I also want the team behind his future Smash Bros. Game to use Diddy and Dixie's voices from the DKC and Mario games, because if Yoshi can have his voice, then why can't Bowser or DK or Diddy? Also, give Diddy a Super Diddy alt and a Shades alt. Yes, please. Gosh, this claymation is so good. Shout out to Transparent Jiggly64 for the DK Super Art. For taunts and victory animations, I want most of them to be brand new. For up taunt, Diddy does his current side taunt with a voice line from Mario Power Tennis being used instead of the... For his side taunt, Diddy strikes the same cocky pose as in Donkey Kong 64. Look at that majestic, confident boy. Look at him! For anybody that thinks Diddy is fine in Smash, I raise you this pose. And for down taunt, Dixie pops in out of nowhere and kisses Diddy on the cheek for support. Aww, adorable. But for Dixie's up taunt, I want her to put her hands in the air and form rock signs with them while bobbing her head back and forth. Side taunt has her blow some bubblegum. And for down taunt, Diddy pops in and out of nowhere and comforts Dixie for support. Again, like a great way to show personality between characters is to give them someone to bounce off of. First victory animation. Yeah, duh. Like, that's... I want to make a GIF where it's just these two images rapidly going back and forth with each other. Second victory animation is Dixie's Victory Jam. I'm assuming, yeah, the third one's with the two of them together. Leaning on a hero coin and polishing it up before and giving a thumbs up to the player. That's so cute! For stats, I want Diddy to be faster and more fluid in the air. To redirect his playstyle more towards rush down and footsies, but also toning down his fall speed to compensate. Red means it's a nerf, and blue means it's a buff. Oh, red is not going to be visible on this background. I also want Diddy and Dixie to have momentum mechanics like Melee did to make Diddy and Dixie more fluid to control. I also want almost every platformer to have this mechanic as well. In exchange, however, Diddy and Dixie, along with other platformer characters like DK, have lower airspeed to compensate. Alright, I'm gonna skip over stats because it's just hard to really... what's the word I'm looking for? Comprehend them without seeing them in action. Dixie will be lighter, slower, and weaker than Diddy, but also have disjointed attacks to make up for lower damage, and her glide from DKC2 to make up for her lower mobility. Before I talk about changes, here are the moves that I don't want changed. And yeah, you don't have to show the claymation moves if you don't want them to be changed, but no, Harrymation makes them anyway. Got the slap, the kick, and then the other tail slap. Up smash, yes, up smash is good. Down smash breakdancing, also good. Forward air is good. But even then, like, even here you can see how much more Diddy could be because of the expressions. He's actually got that spunk going on instead of just angry little Diddy. Got the back air, also good. Grab's good, dash grab, pivot grab, hold and pummel, forward throw, up throw, back throw, and down throw. But change-wise, I want the first two hits of Diddy's jab to be able to be cancelled into any of his tilt attacks. This would further open up plenty of combos for Diddy's, like jab 1 and jab 2 into down tilt, into dash attack, into 2 forward aerials. I want forward tilt to come out on frame 6 instead of frame 10, but have 4 more frames of end light to compensate. I want down tilt to always trip if you hit with Diddy's hands. I want the dash attack to have the same sweet and sour hitboxes as DK's dash attack, with the same hitboxes, hitbox sizes, hitbox, knockback angles, and same amount of active frames. But this dash attack has 2/3 the base knockback and growth knockback of DK's, and it only deals 10% at the sweet spot and 8% at the sour spot. I also want the dash attack to be jump cancelable when the hitbox is active, and to be refreshed like a jump and have its speed and length doubled, every time the dash attack hits an opponent. I also want Diddy, Dixie, and DK, because I mentioned that in his concept, to carry the momentum they get or gain from their dash attacks into a jump, boosting their forward-facing airspeed to even greater heights. All of these changes, while drastic, would turn Diddy's dash attack into a better burst option and a combo starter to get the momentum going. I want neutral air to come out in frame 5 instead of frame 8, but deal 2% less damage. I'm gonna skip over stats things. Stat things aren't fun. I want to see more claymation instead. I want up air to have an early hitbox that sends it forward and up like Melee's Captain Falcon, so they can ladder combo better. Down air to come out, down our stats. Now for the specials, I want most of them to be the same moves, but now rework to work like in their games of origin. That's great. Press B and Diddy pulls out both peanut pop guns and shoots 4 peanuts straight forward in the direction he's currently facing. But hold B and Diddy rapid fires peanuts straight forward instead. It's like a mix between Fox and Falco's lasers. The move comes out on frame 8 when grounded, but on again, not ring stats. But Diddy's neutral special deals more damage the closer you are to an opponent. But the peanuts lose their hit stun after the first 11 frame active frames, and the pop guns can still overheat. And if you hold the B button for 5 seconds, both pop guns will explode and scatter the peanuts in a wide radius that damages opponents at the cost of awful end reg. Yeah, see, this is what we did in the video. I'd love more of a scatter shot from the pop guns. Like I think the example me and Pierre used was Meowth's Pokeball summon of what Diddy's pop gun should feel like. Just rapid fire, not a great zoning projectile, but if you use it right in somebody's face, that's a lot of damage. Bad hand lag. This retool of the current neutral special helps Diddy force opponents to move and poke at them, to open up for Diddy to fight proactively. While the overheated version offers a scary read or mix-up tool that offers something more devastating if the situation calls for. For his neutral special, he wields a gun. He wields 2 guns. He's dual wielding right there. If it misses, opponents can either jump on you if you're not careful, and the peanuts lose their hit stun, so be smart with it. Side special is the Simian Spring and Flip Kick, basically the current side special with a new startup animation reference in the Simian Spring from DK64. Okay, so using the... Instead of jumping forward, he actually springs himself forward. Up special with the rocket barrels. Despite having the same, this up B actually works like a mix between the current up B and K rules, but this up B would be 2/3 as fast as the current up B. We have to charge this up B, and the distance it gets is equal to K rules. Plus, yes! Do the pop gun, yes! This... I don't get this feeling a lot from making videos, but when I get to see people actually, like, take ideas that I've put in videos and bring them to life, like, it is... it pulls my heartstrings. It's the most validating thing. Yeah, and then if he gets hit, the move will devolve into the fully charged version of Diddy's current up B, where the rocket barrels go in the direction you were in before getting hit, and explode the rocket barrels will still... And he's still attached to them! Yes, that's the best way to do it! Because, like, I love that the rocket barrels go all over the place, but it would be so much funnier and fit Diddy's character so much better if he didn't lose his attachment to them and he was just sent corkscrewing around attached to the barrels. And then, of course, the down special is the buddy swap toss. Hello. Both a stance change if you tap down B and a risky kill move if you hold down B. Diddy or Dixie disappear into a puff of smoke, and then Diddy or Dixie emerge from it. The stance change has the same startup and leg as DK's back air, and the stance change even has a hitbox. One that doesn't have kill, but does have a lot of hit stun. Ooh! Allowing you to start one of many possible combos. This makes Buddy Swap an insane combo starter and extender and getaway tool, but with critical flaws. You can't swap mid-attack, opponents can still hit you before and after you swap, and you either start combos and run, and you can't do either forever. And with the buddy toss, just like in DKC2, Diddy and Dixie can hop on the back of whoever's in the lead, and the leader can throw their partner forward, backward, or up before following where the partner is thrown. It's like if Ice Climber's up B was angleable, but with a lot more startup to compensate. As well as that, if your partner gets hit, they disappear and the leader is stuck in long end lag. But if the leader gets hit, the partner will disappear and the leader will be sent flying. This down B would give Diddy and Dixie an unorthodox kill move, English is hard, and tethered recovery with a lot of high risk but high reward, if used right. Dixie, on the other hand, would have some similar moves to Diddy, but she would mostly be an original character. Lighter and slower than Diddy, but she would have her hair glide in DKC2 to compensate via holding the jump button in midair. Imagine if we take out each individual rocket barrel and that affected how it flew around uncontrollably. Oh, that'd be great. As well as that, some of her attacks would be weaker and safer versions of Diddy's attacks. Quite a few of Dixie's attacks would be disjointed due to her hair for some reason, using her hair for some attacks, and her specials would be brand new, making Dixie more well-rounded than Diddy while also being able to play spacing games like him. Jab is the same as Diddy's. Forward tilt is an anti-clockwise spinning hair smack. Simple spacing approach and poking tool. Up tilt is the same as Diddy's, but with less damage. Down tilt is a low hair sweep. Dash attack is based on her roll attack from DKC2. More startup than Diddy's, would have more range and a disjointed hitbox thanks to Dixie's hair. It's like an uncharged up B from young Link, but Dixie keeps moving forward and only spins around twice. I also want the knockback angles and the amount of active frames to be the same as DK's dash attack, just like Diddy's new dash attack. But this dash attack has half the base knockback and knockback growth of DK's. Also, just like Diddy's new dash attack, I want the dash attack to be jump cancelable while the hitbox is active. It basically work like the, how the dash attack works in the DK Donkey Kong Country games. Also want all three to carry the momentum they got or gained from their dash attacks into a jump, boosting their forward-facing airspeed, but not when jumping or turning backwards, which will halt all the... Again, just how it works in the Donkey Kong Country games. Neutral air has Dixie spin around twice, knock away opponents, basically a better version of DK's current neutral air. Forward air is a clockwise spinning hair smack, similar to her forward tilt. Reflects projectiles, that's fun! Back air is Diddy's, up air is Diddy's, down air is Diddy's. Forward air is a simple and safe smack with her hair. It's like a much faster and weaker version of Sephiroth's forward smash. Up smash is headbutt like Wario's up smash, but this one has a disjointed hitbox, again, thanks to the ponytail. And down smash has Dixie quickly spin around twice. It's basically young Link's grounded up B, but it comes out on 12. And the general power is the same as a medium charged up B from young Link. Grabs are the same as Diddy's. The forward throw imitating her throwing animation from DKC2 and DKC3. Same with the up throw, while the other two throws are Diddy's. Neutral special is barrel toss. Okay. A spacing and zoning tool with a DKC style barrel that is not as big as the barrel item, but hits just as hard as one. Dixie can also lob the barrel upwards by pressing up during the throwing animation to cover aerial space in the direction Dixie is currently facing. But the barrel is as slow as a Belmont axe and rolls just as fast when you do this. Side special is Spinning Kong, basically DK's current up B, but the grounded version is just as fast as the aerial version, but loses the armor and is 2/3 as strong as DK's to compensate. Up special is Barrel Blast. It's the one he thought of for DK, but he can't aim it, only shoots Dixie straight up and has 2/3 the distance of DK's barrel cannon and half the power, but also doesn't put her in free fall. Okay. He wants the final Smash to be the ultimate guitar gazump. Yes. Look at these two rock stars. Oh, that's so good. See you later, Dixo. Thanks for sticking around so long. It's basically a better version of DK's old Final Smash. Diddy and Dixie popping out of nowhere, and both Kongs pull out their guitars, and before the guitar gazump from DK64 mixed with Dixie's victory theme from DKC2, some components move towards the Kongs and repeatedly taunt. Yes! Oh, I had that idea once for... Oh gosh, who did I have it for? I think it was a Squid Sisters assist trophy. This was like years ago. I just want more ways in Super Smash Bros. To force people to taunt. I think that would be so funny. Then after finishing the song, the same flashing DK symbol that appears to launch everyone near it, and Diddy and Dixie kiss before Dixie poofs out of existence, and the other Kong resumes back to the fight. And there it is. This is how Diddy Kong could be in Smash Bros. A 2-in-1 stance character, a cocky hotshot, and an amazing boyfriend, as well as what Dixie could be in Smash Bros., a teacher character for new players, an upbeat rock star, and an amazing girlfriend. Now you might be thinking, so what? What is the point of changing Diddy this drastically? Couldn't he work on his own? What makes Dixie so important? Because Diddy and Dixie aren't just monkeys, they are icons, characters that helped introduce a new generation of gamers to the Donkey Kong series, and platformers in general. Characters that helped put Rare on the map and are true video game heroes. I don't think Smash Bros. Does these icons justice. But on top of that, Diddy and Dixie don't have a way to stand out in Smash. No cargo throw, no armor, no resource to micromanage. That's why the tag team system is perfect for Diddy and Dixie. Because the tag team mechanic is the core of what Donkey Kong Country was. And not including it in Smash would be as big of a service as Returns and Tropical Freeze leaving it behind. I don't just want these changes so Diddy can play better and be more unique and finally get Dixie into Smash. I want these changes because I love these characters and the Donkey Kong series. And Smash Brothers, especially Nintendo, shouldn't distance themselves away from Diddy and Dixie's legacy, but embrace it and let it grow again and be a good way to start. And a good way to start is by using Super Smash Bros. To revive that legacy and rediscover these lost video game heroes. Thank you all for reading, and have a nice day. Also, shoutouts to BN for helping with the format of this concept. This is my last Smash Bros. Concept for now, so might as well hang it with a bang, but I'll be back to bring new life to a fallen franchise and with a partner to help as well. Highlight below. I love teasers. Please more people put teasers in. I love teasers so much. So, right here? Yes. What the fuck? Okay. Sure. That is not what I was expecting. I might even go so far as to say that was the last thing I was expecting. But consider my curiosity piqued. Because I think I would go so far as to say that the loss of the tag team mechanic in Brawl is the thing in Smash Bros. History that hurts me the most that we never got to see it. Because it's such a good way of letting characters express themselves by having somebody else to express themselves with. And I do think you could be a little more ambitious with the tag team mechanic, have specials that actively tag each other out. Maybe, say for the, the spinning Kong thing, if you, input it a certain way, Diddy and Dixie will actually spin each other around like they're dancing to do more damage and tag off to Diddy. That there could be some interesting ways of having more ways to tag each other out. But as a baseline concept, this feels so much better than what we have in Smash Bros. Right now. And it gets Dixie into the game. I love Dixie. Also, love the Raichu plush in the background right there. That's great. Love that. But yeah, I'm never gonna say no to a Harrymation concept. I love just the visual cornucopia of fantastic little claymation Nintendo characters. It makes me so... This one especially, look at this. I'm gonna zoom in on that face. Look at this little guy. He's just the best. Just the best. And with that, we come to a close with the 12th Peasants Perspective episode. Thank you all so much for participating in a full year of Peasants Perspective. This has been a lot of fun. It's seriously not my most successful thing I do on YouTube, but it's my favorite thing to do. I love seeing how different people show their creativity in different ways. And let's move on to the next year with some fun ideas. I think I might start doing, like, I said this at the beginning in case anybody wasn't here for then. I might start doing themed episodes, like advance several weeks in advance what I'm doing, just so people can have time to plan around whatever the episode will be. I don't know, I want to do some fun things with this. But for now, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody that submitted. There's still a lot of cool ideas that I didn't get to around then. And again, all the people that submitted first times with, like their first submissions with this episode, we were doing something a little different this time, but if you submit again next time, you will 100% be rigged into the next episode for the August episode. But for now, this has been Peasants Perspective. Thank you for joining me,